uncharacteristically warm.
Way hotter than it usually is.
Us being in Minnesota, we're just waiting for the weather to turn to spring. Gotcha.
On what, Halloween? We had a couple inches of snow. Cold.
Yeah.
And now, 3 weeks later, here we are. Sunny and 60-something.
I'm not complaining. So imagine once November comes, we won't be looking back.
Yeah, probably. Oh well. I kind of like the cold weather. Okay, smart. He had full body pajamas on. Let's see, what happened? I've been on vacation. I haven't been on live here for a couple weeks now. Yesterday was my first day back, so I'm kind of out of the loop too. Why don't we have Sergeant Sealstrom tell us what's been going on recently?
I think, well, not much. As of recent, I think Friday night, after live, a vehicle fled from Oakdale and was picked up by a team who were able to follow, and it was a Tahoe, I believe. Wanted for fleeing. The vehicle fled eastbound 94 into Wisconsin. It was picked up by Wisconsin. I don't know if it was State Patrol or a county over there. It might have been one of the county.
I think it was, St. Croix County, maybe.
And they took over the pursuit of that vehicle. Were able to take that individual into custody and coordinated with their afternoon team. Being he crossed the state lines and went to Wisconsin, he's got to get booked in Wisconsin. As he was fleeing police in that state, he was booked on additional charges over in Wisconsin by their department, and then will come back eventually. He's got to go through what's called an extradition process. They have an extradition hearing. He can either waive it or go through it. Once that's done, he eventually will be transferred over here to deal with his charges. So he fled Oakdale, but I think it was Pat Scott located the vehicle. And
yep.
Guy tried to go across state lines, and it didn't work. So thank you to Wisconsin for assisting. They, as you know, our police powers end at the state lines, so they were able to kind of pick it up and coordinate with us via a common channel, and an individual is probably tucked in over in Wisconsin in their jail. So it was great work. I think over the weekend, and I can't say much for our department. I guess on the stolen side, it was quiet in Ramsey County. If you haven't seen any of the crime pages, or I don't know if they issued an alert yet, but Minneapolis is dealing with a large amount of theft models involving work trucks and robberies. So if you happen to work on the Hennepin side of the river, Minneapolis, doing any type of trade, lock your trucks, just be vigilant. Seems to be the target right now. We kind of over the summer dealt with that over here in Highland area, and I think for the most part St. Paul and kind of nipped that in the butt.
I mean, we still get them, but not as much as we used to.
No. They were dealing, I think, with like 4 or 5 stolen Kia Hyundais at a time. Always occupied by multiple kids. A few of them were armed robberies, a bunch of theft models. So, as always, just always be vigilant no matter where you're at. But if you're someone who operates in a work truck, you're kind of a target right now.
Yep.
What else do we got? Monday, we had Veterans Day, Friday. So I think a lot of people had the day off.
Did you guys work Friday or no?
We did not.
Did the sheriff do live on Friday still?
He did.
Okay.
He did. Went out live. I can't say I know what happened.
Him and Pat?
Him and Pat, I believe.
Dynamic duo. Well, that's going to be us in like 40 years.
Us?
Yeah.
All right.
You know, that's how long they've been partners, I think. Clear right. Well, you got a car coming.
Think Live on Patrol will be around in 40 years?
I
mean, that'd be
who knows?
That'd be a testament to...
Who knows how the internet and stuff's going to be in 40 years.
In 40 years, it's just every squad car is going to have a live feed.
I don't even think there'll be squad cars in 40 years.
Well, we're going to be operating
drones flying around,
taking police reports via drone.
Probably.
Well, I hope I'm not a cop in 40 years. I think I'd be 72.
Oh wait, Lexus sedan. Cop has the keys.
345 seater.
340.
340.
Could have got. Hopefully they check. See if it was impounded.
This week, as far as the CAT team goes, we've... I mean, there's been a few spottings of stolens. A lot of follow-up on some cases from last week. We made an arrest going into the holiday weekend last Thursday. It was a Jeep Gladiator was stolen either the morning or evening before last Thursday. We were able to track that vehicle down, and we did a VIT on it at Mung Village. We were able to box it in, take the guy into custody, and he had the keys on him. It was actually probably one of the smoother VITs we've had. He gave up before even getting situated into the driver's seat. So
nice.
So we had that. Tony Body had that case over the holiday weekend.
What day was that?
Thursday. Yeah. This week, relatively mellow as far as activity goes. At least on this side of the river. go through the pending.
Oh,
there's
shots
one.
fired. What do we got here? One shot heard 5 minutes ago. That's on ring camera.
9273.
There's that. Right off of 7th Street.
Yep, 7th.
7th and 35 area.
Yeah.
Copy, please, the 5242.
Just east of there. Well, that's pending. What do we got here? Not a whole lot. That vehicle theft.
256, 259.
256. A lot of calls and pending, but nothing.
204 to copy. Shot fired at 686 Mercer. Single caller reporting one shot heard. Unknown direction about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, a bunch of pending teleserve motor vehicle thefts, which is the with St. Paul. They take some of those, depending on the nature, over
1342.
the internet, and then an officer gives them a phone call. Theft from autos, thefts. That's about all we got. Where's that stolen Durango? I think it was off a Century.
Is that a Maplewood call?
That's a close idea. Male came to their lot, drove off in their vehicle, so they have a title in their hands. Purchased from an auction in Wisconsin.
9773.
Huh. Interesting. It's a dealership, so
Some type of
maybe possible
fraud, maybe
fraud or civil issue. Let's see here.
Honestly, with the nice weather, I thought it would usually picks up, but the last couple days it's been rather, I guess, nice to not have an uptick in stuff we're usually dealing with.
Yeah, especially with the nice weather. Usually the nice weather, people go out and, break into stuff, steal cars.
Yeah. Not theft from autos, I would have figured. We're coming up on the border of St. Paul and Maplewood. Not trying to think. It's been pretty mellow since Friday. It's not a huge update to give.
Well, let's change that.
That's what we're out here to do.
There's gotta be something going on around here.
If you're a Hyundai owner, they were in the Twin Cities doing their security update for anybody that wanted to go through it. Sounds like they had a huge turnout. I think they did 2 days in St. Paul, 2 days in Minneapolis. We stopped out and talked with their law enforcement liaison, Ira. We stopped out there Monday, a few of us, and he walked us through what they're doing and trying to fix the Kia Hyundai phenomenon that we've been dealing with the last, I'd say, year and a half now. We're still seeing them on this side of the river, but it's definitely tame compared to what we dealt with, at least even last summer, a year ago. So just a heads up, sounds like they got it fixed for most models that are affected, so if you haven't gotten that taken care of, reach out to your closest dealer. They can check your VIN and see if it's available. It sounds like it should be a free fix. That's going to prevent you being a victim of auto theft.
I wonder what the percentage of Kias and Hyundais have been stolen or attempted. So how many cars just get broken windows? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's got to be a lot.
What do you mean, like the percentage of all
like
Hyundais?
all the Kias and Hyundais out on the road. I just wonder how many have
been stolen.
I
know there's been ones where unfortunately they've had their car stolen 3-4 times.
I know, that's what I mean. Like
that's just bad luck.
They go get it fixed and get stolen again. That same thing with catalytic converters too.
Yeah.
People
targeting
specific vehicles. I know a guy had it stolen 3 times. His catalytic converter. He had a Prius.
And they're not cheap.
No, thousands of dollars.
So you mentioned you were gone for a little bit. Where were you at, Joe?
Oh, I was up central Minnesota for Deer Week. So let's see here. 2 weekends ago, so like the 4th maybe through whatever this last weekend was. I was up doing some deer hunting. I ended up getting one opening morning and sat all week and didn't see anything else.
What'd you get?
Just a doe, good eater, no horns. It's all right.
So when can we expect some sticks?
So here's the deal. I get like brats and stuff made up at a meat locker, and they're really good. But if you bring your meat to them right now, there's so, I mean, the place is full of deer meat right now. You ain't gonna get your deer back.
No, never do.
So I always wait a couple months.
Oh, you're one of those who wants third?
I want my own deer. I made a
gotcha.
perfect shot. No meat was wrecked. You know, some people make bad shots, and you don't know whose meat you're getting.
Yeah.
So I just wait. Probably like January. I'll bring my meat up there and
3 hours old.
get it processed. That way I know I got the meat.
Where do you use? Where do you go?
It's in Circle Pines.
Okay.
Butcher shop up there.
Give them a shout out.
I mean, can we?
Why can't you? They do good work.
Did I ever bring any in for you?
No. I'm just assuming if you're a repeat customer, then obviously.
Yeah, I've been going there for a few years now. So what is it called? I think it's called the Sausage House, to be honest. It's off of, what is it, Lake Drive? 35W kind of? North Hills Gun Ranges over there?
Yep.
It's right over there.
Yep. And then do you go up hunting alone, or is it?
Oh, sorry, I was reading some comments here. Yeah, there's like, I don't know, 6 of us, just a group of friends, some family members. We hunt we're on public land, which, what was it, 048?
Yeah.
So you kind of got to deal with other people. But
We're not finding anything.
that's all right. It's a 600-acre state park we're in. Plenty of deer around.
How many other hunters do you see?
It depends. I mean, it's the first day, I bet you there was at least, it's 640 acres, which is like, that's huge. It's a big park.
Yeah.
I'd say, I don't know, probably 20 guys in there.
Well, that's not
Which
bad.
is kind of nice, isn't it, pushing the deer around too.
Size 25. Maybe you know if the gym.
Hey, sir. 1351. 46.
Nice little break before the holiday season.
1725 Legacy Parkway. Male is assaulting a female in the parking lot. She's with the call and the male party ran away.
It's like it's amazing how far south Maplewood goes.
It is.
Happy 40
Yeah. Anyone familiar? We've just been on McKnight. It's on the border of St. Paul and Maplewood. And Maplewood is I'd say, oddly shaped city. It's very long and narrow. It goes all.
It's like a shape of a P.
Yeah, it stems all the way up to White Bear down to here.
Yeah, North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale area, all the way down to basically Bailey Road and like 494.
Yep.
And it's like, what, only a few blocks wide down here? Just a long strip.
Yeah, it's not too big. I don't know if it was talked about a couple weeks ago. I think maybe, was it 2? When you lost your
When I lost my baby, my Charger.
Afternoon shift found an occupied stolen F, was it 250 or 350?
I think it was an F-250.
That they
Either way,
attempted
it was big.
stopped on. It fled down to St. Paul. It ended up hitting a few squad cars and unfortunately took out Joe's Cherry.
Yeah, took out my Charger. I tried boxing in an F-250 and I lost that battle. But we still got the guy, so he's sitting in jail.
Didn't give up.
And Sergeant Suki, I think his car might have got a little boo-boo as well, but it's all right. The show must go on. So,
Fortunately, the rest of that night, Joe had to ride with.
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I had to ride with the old Tomcat the rest of the night, which it wasn't so bad. We
had fun.
despite what a lot of people might think, we do get along quite well. Even when he likes to disagree with me.
Odie. You know, I don't get down here much.
I do
Lower
not
half
either.
of Maplewood.
I do not either.
It's kind of a nice little
It's not many people. I mean, people know about it, but
There's no reason to come
there's
down
no
here if you
reason to
don't.
come down here unless you live here.
Yeah. Yeah, we had fun that night. It was a long night. 4 a.m.
Oh yeah.
Excuse me.
Shots fired calling Wheelock over in St. Paul.
Western Avenue.
6 shots fired coming from Western by the train tracks. Just one caller so far.
It's tough. We don't have shot spotter here over on this side of the river. So a lot of the times we're relying on additional callers. That helps kind of solidify a good shots fired, where direction, because the way the sound travels, depending where you're at, a lot of people might think it's different directions or different vicinity. So it is nice to get a few more callers.
Yep, we kind of rely on people calling. We never assume, but when we get a shots fired call with only one person, and pretty much everywhere we work is densely populated. Typically, when there's gunfire, a lot of people are calling it in.
It does occasionally get the one.
Sometimes you get the one that surprises you where only one person called it in, and maybe it's just people assuming other people called it in. But especially when you start getting 2, 3, 4 callers, That's kind of our shot spotter. Yeah, that's what we know.
You guys are our shot spotters.
So if you ever do hear something, just call it in. Like worst case scenario, if it was nothing, no big deal. You know, I know a lot of people are always like, oh, I don't want to bother 911. Just call us. You think you heard something, let us know.
Yeah. Gun violence is a huge issue right now, especially with our youth. Call it in, especially gunfire. Never hesitate. And I know that's a lot of people in the summer with fireworks, they kind of hesitate at that as well. But, you know what? I've been to a lot of fireworks calls that were called in a shot fired.
Drop interior to the north. For suspect.
Good.
Happy Superbike 2.
All right. This is the old,
Still ski jump?
no, it's the golf course now. Battle Creek's golf course. What was it called? Battle Creek, right?
I don't know.
It was a 9-hole.
Never golfed it.
It was a Ramsey County course. It's since shut down. I think it's scheduled to turn into some type of development, just like a Hillcrest. Yeah, last day it was just Battle Creek Golf Course. It's actually a nice little course. It was well maintained. 9 holes. As far as a 9-hole course goes, it was a little harder. Had some.
You good at golfing?
I like golfing.
Oh, so this might surprise you, but I'm kind of competitive, and I am really bad at golf.
I was gonna say you like golf because I invited you golfing one time and you told me you don't golf.
I can usually go golfing once a year,
Take another note.
and then I realize by about hole number 3, why am I here? And I'm so bad at this.
Yeah, but even being bad at golf is a bad day at golf is better than being at work.
Yeah,
especially
I
with
guess.
the buddies.
That's
like,
true.
You can't beat a good scramble.
That is true. I just wish I was better at it, which is my fault. I'm not doing anything to.
Ponds of Battle Creek. See, I got people looking out for me when I can't remember something. Ponds of Battle Creek is a golf course. No, I like golfing. My oldest enjoys, so I try to get him out as much as I can.
See, he plays hockey too, right?
Yeah, he just likes.
So
my
what-
kid just loves sports.
I know, but I'm making a generalization here. It seems like hockey players. I don't know if you use a lot of the same, skills, but it seems like hockey players really like golf and they're good at it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if the swing, the golf club and the hockey stick is something. I don't know.
I know what you're saying though, because I know quite a few hockey players who just are naturally good
They're
at
just
golf.
gifted at golf, and I don't know if it's a lot of the skills correlate or.
Definitely a sport you have to start young though. I will say that I didn't start till I was just probably an adult. I didn't start golfing more than once every other year.
We can go a few times next summer. I promise.
All right. Well, just so the backseaters know, we every year retired deputies put on a Ramsey County deputy tournament. So it's current and retirees, and Cat team was putting on a team, and we needed a 4th, and we asked old Joe. And
I think what did I have going on that day? I had something going on that day.
no,
Oh, that's when my foot was broken.
no,
Yeah.
was it? No.
Yeah.
Can't have a broken foot and you're not walking around in a boot.
I think my foot was broken.
In August? It
Yep.
was right at the fair time.
No.
Yes, your foot was not broken.
I think it was.
All right.
That could be the only explanation.
So you'll play next year.
We'll see.
So yeah, that's a good time. I mean, say we're all relatively, if you're not under 10 years, you're a newer deputy. So there's probably a lot of guys we didn't know that have a pretty prestigious track record with the department. So it's always cool meeting those individuals.
South of the lock on the railroad tracks.
Or seeing some of the old retired, whether it's your old, I had a few patrol sergeants that when I first started have since retired, kind of catching up with them. That's always fun. It's a good time. Maybe we'll just have to put on like a cat team tournament.
Maybe you could do like a unit competition tournament within the department.
So, Wife's family used to put on it's birdies and bags tournament. You'd go and golf 18, so you'd be with a teammate through the whole thing, and you'd golf 18, and so it's you can figure out whatever rules you want, but it's just you two, and then when you're done, then you go play a bags tournament. Birdies and bags.
Cornhole. You're talking like cornhole, right?
Yeah, cornhole.
A lot of still the backseaters. I don't know if bags is like just a Midwestern thing.
It's just a play on. Well, for the birdies and bags, it's just a play on words, but yeah, cornhole. I think is that what a lot of people say in the South?
That's I don't know. I don't know if it's like we say pop up here, but it's sold everywhere else.
Yeah, or Coke. Yeah, I'm sorry, backseaters. Cornhole.
Yeah.
So, little tournament of cornhole, and it's a fun day. Obviously, you guys start.
Have you seen the professionals play that?
They're really
like
good.
on ESPN. Oh my god.
They're really good. They can make those bags stop on a dime.
I don't know how someone can even. Do
It's just anything, right? Practice.
Let's see. Person's going south for a month. Is it best to have your driveway plowed or leave snow on? I would say it's best to have it plowed. If I'm a burglar cruising around looking for a place to burglarize.
That's actually if you have a neighbor, or you can hire a company to routinely keep your driveway.
It's there's stacks of newspapers piled up. Driveway not being plowed, sidewalks not being plowed, just signs that show no one's living here. You don't want that. Put some lights on timers, different times of the day.
It didn't work at Home Alone though.
No, didn't. Actually, last summer, or I'm sorry, last winter, in White Bear Township, I was working. It was when we had all those, like, there's like a foot of snow over like a couple of days.
Yeah.
And an elderly gentleman was in his house, knew the storm was coming, so he just kind of stocked up on some stuff. And he never had his driveway plowed. Well, a couple guys looked at his driveway and thought, wow, we're going to go break in. And the guy was actually home in the house when these people broke in. So I told him the same thing. I said, at least get your driveway plowed. Show people that someone's here.
We're checking on it.
They're just checking on it. Even if it's just having a neighbor pull their car in and out of your driveway a few times. There's tracks or anything. Anything will help. Bags is going to be an Olympic sport next summer?
Now, let's start training, me and you.
Yes,
Let's
sit in the office?
Let's go to regionals. Let's go. Your mullet would fit in perfect there. We'll get matching hats.
Get sponsors?
Yeah, matching hats. You look like a sweatband type of guy.
Oh, for sure.
Sweatbands.
For sure.
Yeah, we could just we'll just start playing against the rest of the cat guys in teams, and just use them as practice.
4452. We're code 4. Your other squad's being canceled.
I like our chances. You know, not to brag, I think I'm pretty good at bags.
I think I'd beat you.
Well, we'll just gotta find out.
I'll side smoke you. Just like your little donut eating contest and everything else. Golf? See, I can admit when I might be outclassed, I think you could beat me at golf. But anything else, I think I got it.
Hockey?
Yeah, I could probably beat you in hockey.
Okay. You know what? I'm just gonna agree to not respond.
You know, I'm just a natural athlete.
Are you?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll get the bags out this year. This year we'll play. And when I build my backyard rink, you can come over and lace them up with me and my kids.
Oh, for sure. Show you guys how it's done.
Did it last year. I'm upgrading to an actual hockey, like a
You get the
rink
boards
set.
and everything?
Yeah, I have to. So our yard's, relatively flat, but it's got still got like a slight slope. So I need a.
Just gotta shim it up a little bit.
Yeah, but the kit I got was only good for like 2-inch slope, which is practically nothing. And it worked, but need something a little more. My one kid now is, he's at the age where he's learned to raise the puck, and last year I was digging through the snow a lot.
And in the summertime, your lawnmower's throwing hockey pucks everywhere.
No, I cleaned it up before we mow. Gotta clean it up. But you go, trouncing through with your skates on and they get snow on your skates. Oh, it's not worse. Even playing at a rink growing up, you'd shoot it over the boards or it'd hit off the pipe and fly over. And you're trying to find it.
Yep.
Well, things were like gold back in the day. Housley Park.
Oh, yeah.
Northwoods Park.
Oh, yeah. Casey Lake had a really nice rink. You ever go to Northdale, over in Oakdale? Is there off like 36th and Century over there? They have a really nice rink, too.
Tucked back there by the school almost. Elementary.
It's Castle. That's where I went to elementary, so
Yeah.
I grew up over there. So Northdale was kind of
your
that was
spot.
that was my territory.
I think growing up first was once you actually started playing the Fire Barn rink in Little Canada. Right off Little Canada Road, tucked down there by the skate, skate park.
Yep.
They always maintain a good hockey rink. And then Northwoods, North St. Paul by Maplewood Middle. Then Housie.
The one by Maplewood Middle School, that's Northwoods Park.
Yeah, that's what I said.
You just was wondering if it was Housie Park.
No, I said Northwoods and Housie.
Oh, Housie is by Charles and 6th Avenue.
Yeah, I live there.
Yeah.
And then Phelan Rec Center has the refrigerated rink, so does Dale Rec Center. Over there off Dale and Arlington. Refrigerated.
Let's head over towards this. Group of 12 chasing students from the school. Toyota RAV4. Possibly gang affiliated.
DOC 1818 West of the grocery store. Male came back with his mother causing problems. Suspect is like male 20 years arrived at Eaton Central. The attempt to get contact
pickleball? Play pickleball?
Oh yeah, really good.
They're putting a pickleball court in my neighborhood.
Really?
You're on?
I heard a lot of people are getting injured playing pickleball.
I think I mentioned people getting tense over it.
I mean, I don't know. You just got to limber up, stretch out before you play.
Pickleball. What's the other one? Spike ball? You ever play spike ball? That's fun.
I've never played it. It doesn't interest me. It's fun. I've seen the videos of people playing it, and I just
not agile enough.
Oh, I like to be challenged. I just don't think spike ball would be challenging for me.
We're gonna have like a yard games Olympics.
Well, first you got to invite me over, so we'll see if that ever happens.
Clear of the death
What else? It's the Can Jam.
That's what the frisbee's in. Yeah, I've played that.
That's fun. Or what's the other one? Beersby?
Washington text. They're requesting 2 officers be present around 1500 hours for the school dismissal. They said there was a group of 12 Asian males that have been surrounding the school in a black Toyota RAV4, as well as a silver Honda. Possibly gang affiliation. Information only at 1410.
That's right, where we just were.
Yeah. Kyle and Kill, you guys see that PCN by you?
So right where we just were, someone just called in a stolen car down the street. Deputy Kill and Williams are right down the road. They're going to check it out. Looks like it's been abandoned.
See? Look at my wife's got my back.
What did she say? Oh my goodness. You guys are in cahoots.
Oh, he's a nice lady.
Let's see here.
I hate to float away from that one now.
Yeah, just in case. Just in case. We'll hang out for a minute here. I didn't remember where.
Middle Street on the 6th.
Clear right.
We didn't drive past the dude.
Oh, that'd be embarrassing. Stolen on the 14th, so stolen. Couldn't have been there too long.
It's fresh. No rush.
Back on.
Yeah. Well, they're going to be able to handle that. Sounds like that vehicle was dumped last night in front of someone's address. Stolen yesterday on the 14th, a Toyota RAV4. We'll get it back to their owner. Don't know what condition. Hopefully, unfortunately, we find a lot of stolens that are pretty banged up.
306.
So,
Yeah, it's, hopefully insurance stuff will cover stuff, but you just never know. Wow.
You can put me on at 79 Metro. Code 4 unoccupied.
hear that?
Copy, 14.
Oh, what else we got? We got Thanksgiving and Black Friday coming up. Oh,
You a Black Friday guy?
Honestly, when like Black Friday used to be just like it'd be like a 2-hour event at each store. There was actually like really good deals because I worked retail, so I never got to do it. But that'd be like the few times I do it.
See,
Now it's like week long, and then they have Cyber Monday,
Yeah.
and then Terrific Friday. There's just all these. It's just it's not Black Friday anymore. It's like week long deals, and if you actually do your research, a lot of the times it's not worth this.
No, see, I'm not a huge fan of that because, I know like a lot of stores are open on Thanksgiving now.
Yeah, which
And,
I don't like.
I used to work at a huge retail store, and instead of, having the day off with my family and stuff, I had to go into work, and people should have the day off. It's a holiday.
Where'd you work?
Fleet Farm.
Ooh, I worked at Sam's Club. Never met Sam though.
So yeah, I don't know. I wish, and you know what? It seems like if you just look for a certain deal, like if you know you need a new TV, I guarantee you during the year you'll find that TV on sale for the same price at some point as it will be on Black Friday.
Absolutely.
You just gotta pay. And there's so many people. It's a zoo.
The only one that's worth it, like every now and then, like Bella's will do, like the first 100 people are getting like gift cards, or they give away like 2 guns, or there's something good, something worth it, worth my time.
Anyone with a headache.
Free shotgun's not worth a headache.
Yeah, it's probably something cheap.
Oh,
I have very high taste when it comes to shotguns.
Free shotgun's a free shotgun, my
Yeah.
friend. Yeah, I worked retail. God, until I was 2013 probably. I feel for those guys. They're long days because usually the Black Friday stores are open up at like 6 a.m. right? But you're getting there at like 4 a.m. to prep, so you don't even get to enjoy Thanksgiving. You're in bed early. If you work retail, I feel.
I do too, and I don't think unless you worked retail, you don't appreciate.
It's like if you've never worked in a restaurant, you can't understand.
You just, I try not whenever I'm shopping. It's cashiers and whatever. I'm always extra nice and polite to them. I mean, I'm polite to everybody, but I'm extra nice to them.
Yeah. I always look forward to Thanksgiving. Dumplings. Oh yes. Deep fried turkey.
I've never had. Have I had deep fried turkey? I don't know.
My father-in-law, he'll do one on the Traeger. I don't know if they do a regular one anymore. Otherwise, he does it in like a. I don't know if it's an infrared deep fryer.
See, turkey, you know, I like the dark meat because I think it's way too, like the white meat just
Dry.
It's so dry.
You need a lot of gravy.
Yeah.
2262, go for.
Gravy's a must when you're having turkey. Now I'm hungry.
Dude, we just had Chipotle.
2 hours ago. 2.5 hours.
We got a lot of people talking about the Detroit Lions.
Oh, you know what? I'm not gonna lie, I'm a fan. I like Jared Goff though. He was an awesome quarterback in LA. They just discarded him, and you know LA had that one good year with Matthew Stafford. Now Jared Goff's just showing out. Last couple of years. I'm a Vikings fan, but I can appreciate what that fan base has gone through.
What do you think? You know, I do too. If anybody should win it, it's probably the Lions.
I mean, don't roll out the Vikings yet. We're on a 4 or 5 game win streak, sir.
It's the Vikings.
Hey.
We ain't gonna win it.
No negativity in this squad car, please.
Well, what do you think about the old? What they're calling him, the pastronaut?
2229 was it?
Josh Dobbs. You know, he worked at NASA, so they call him the pastronaut.
Yeah,
You're not sold on him, huh?
I'm a Kirk fan. So
I like Kirk, but he's a statue.
he's a what?
He's a statue. He just stands there and lets people tackle.
He was on pace for MVP season.
No, I disagree. You don't
And
know. Kirk,
He's one of the nicest guys.
You can tell me the motor vehicle test.
I'm one of the nicest guys ever, but that doesn't mean I should be in the NFL.
Well, yeah, because you can't throw the ball.
Yeah, I
like
can.
him. No, I think he's a serviceable. He's going to fill in the role, okay. But yeah, I'm not. There's a reason he's bounced around to 7+ teams. He's a Casey Keenum.
Case Keenum.
Case Keenum. Case Keenum was a flash in the pan, right? He had that one good year. He had Stephon Diggs, you know, the Minneapolis Miracle, and then you know he left and got a big contract and.
I don't think he got a very big contract.
For backup,
He went to the Browns.
Yeah.
With Kevin Stefanski.
Millions.
Yeah, that's what everybody makes in the NFL.
It's pretty crazy. Me and you, we're gonna be big Olympians. Cornhole Olympians.
I wonder what Olympians get paid, don't they?
Yeah, if you win a gold medal, it's like for every gold medal you win, they get like I don't want to speak out of turn, but what is it like $10,000, $25,000?
I don't know. If anybody knows, somebody knows that. Let us know.
Yeah, what does an Olympian make if they win? If they medal out? Because they can't get endorsements, can they? While they're
you know, yeah, I don't
active.
know. I don't know how that works.
You know, I mean, and I think that's they should though. Like
down near the
you know, especially like you think a lot of the sports. You know, they spend a lot of their life just aimed towards the Olympics. They should. If they can get
they can make endorsements and still represent the country. I'm all for it.
You know, like the Olympics for boxing. They used to be super prestigious, but you know, am I going to turn pro? I can turn pro at 18 and you know start making money right away, or am I going to hold out for 4 years in the Olympics? You know, waste 4 years of your prime making nothing.
Yep.
It's just not. You know, it's not worth it. Not as. I feel like a lot of people. It's not as big as it used to be, like in the 80s.
Yep. Like, you know, my dad was a huge boxing fan. I think he still is, but UFC kind of took over that a lot.
You can't say that. Boxing still is such a huge sport globally, though.
Yeah, not
like the numbers.
Here.
There's a reason, even here though. There's a reason the top boxers make significantly more.
Yeah,
still
that has
more
a lot
money.
to do with promotion.
Biggest issue with boxing is there's no unified cohesion. There's thousands of different promoters, and certain promoters don't work well with each other, so then certain top fighters aren't fighting each other. Whereas in the UFC, it's just all one. You're getting better fights. That's boxing's biggest issue right now. They're not putting out the biggest fights they can. Especially when you have, 3-4 top promoters that refuse. Because if you're a promoter and your guy fights another guy, you're splitting the money. Right? You're you're co-hosting a show.
Yep.
It's less rewarding. Giving someone else a piece of your pie.
There's got to be something around here. Looks like we got a birthday shout out. Michael's daughter, Lori, just turned 5.
Happy birthday.
We said that in perfect tandem.
Yeah, that was good. See, we do like each other. We're in sync, sir.
Yep, ADJ 1581.
42, can we do a call back, please?
I did offer Odie to drive today, but he likes to.
I'm a computer man.
You're faster than me. You can bail out on foot.
Oh yeah, I'm like a gazelle. I've been told. Very, very swift.
Taylor Swift. So is a gazelle your spirit animal?
I guess I don't know. I've never thought about that.
Receipt 1425.
Nothing.
9271.
Looks a hit and run.
So when it comes to all those parked yesterday, those are the worst.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there's so many people that don't have insurance and drive illegally.
You know, surprisingly, I got hit by with somebody when I first became a deputy in my own personal car. They had no insurance. Surprisingly, I got my deductible back.
When I was in high school, I got rear-ended by a guy who had no insurance. I was driving an Oldsmobile Cutlass.
Oh no. And you probably didn't carry
I didn't have
coverage.
any full coverage, so I had to eat it. But luckily, the guy ended up doing the right thing and paid me, so that was nice. And then I had a pickup truck get backed into, and that's the same. I had a pickup truck get backed into, same thing, no insurance. They ended up paying me too,
That is good luck.
paying for the repair. So
That's tough. I mean, I had several vehicles you only carry liability on, right? Because it's
just
you're
doesn't
paying more
make
full
sense to do
coverage.
anything else, you know.
But it's just you always then are on the other end when someone doesn't have it, and I know a lot of people have lost out on cars because they're hit and ran or the person doesn't have insurance.
Yep.
If you're driving down the road, please make sure you're insured.
I just think the liability you have if you hit somebody and you don't have insurance.
Yeah, you could
Just like medically, I mean, I
lawsuits.
can't imagine someone going to the hospital. Just going to the hospital, what does that cost? Thousands?
Yeah.
You know,
What is it? PIP coverage, personal injury protection,
something.
Every insurance plan has it in Minnesota. It's so much medical coverage, so and that's built in automatically. So it's like for you, and then obviously the additional liability, which is going to cover like, you know, damage or, you know, God forbid someone's seriously injured. You know, if you're on the road, you can open yourself to lawsuits too, because they are, you know, 1,000-pound machines driving at high speeds. We mosey up to Maryland and then start working west, I guess. Wednesdays have been relatively quiet.
Well, the last one was 2 weeks ago when I was on? I think it was 2 weeks ago. Maybe it's 3 weeks ago. That's stolen from Roseville.
Oh yeah,
Riding on the rims.
We did have that. Doesn't look like they're gonna cross it. I was getting nervous. When you technically have the go-ahead, but
You never know.
let us wait. And they start doing the jumping back and forth like they're gonna walk, but don't. Play it safe, huh?
Lauren wants to know if we're actual cops.
No, it is rather slow today.
I know. We're not just guys out here driving aimlessly.
I'll let Odie get out of his squad so you can see. We are. Actually, here you go. You can turn it around and the backseaters then can see you and they can see you in uniform. Prove you're a cop.
You know, I like to live mysteriously.
Yeah, we're both licensed peace officers in the state of Minnesota. We work for the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, carjacking and auto theft team. Right now, if you guys are listening to the radio, there's just nothing going on.
Nope.
Our main mission is stolen vehicles and carjacked vehicles and anything to do with those parameters. We will assist on any violent crimes, any in-progress stuff. So we are an additional body resource out here, but that's our primary goal, so that's what we're doing right now. We're driving. We're not just driving aimlessly, we're hitting areas that we know stolen vehicles to frequent. And unfortunately, in our job, we can't just, like, wish them and they appear.
Yep.
We'd like that. Our day would go faster.
And that's why I would tell people, if you see something, call us, because we can only be at one place at a time.
Absolutely. You know, we can make a...
You know how many times you see a call come in, you're like, oh, finally, there's something, you know?
Yeah. We get a lot of... We love the suspicious, dangerous condition calls, because believe it or not, a lot of those vehicles moving in and out of traffic and, you know, pop up as stolen hits. And we like it when we see 1 or 2, 3 of those calls, right? It kind of breadcrumbs into the general direction they're going, where they might be hanging out, heading. Yeah, we could go on about that, but if you see something, say something. Shoot a call. Maybe we'll throw Odie's number out and you can throw some tips to him.
Yep, 911.
I mean, the radio's real, and we monitor all the St. Paul channels, all these suburban channels, statewide channels, and just not much. You guys would have rode with us, I don't know, even about a year ago, last summer, I'd say. Stolen Hyundais, Kias, they were everywhere. You'd get, you know, a handful in a shift of, you know, group full of individuals crashed a stolen Kia into a light pole or another parked car and they fled on foot.
Yep.
He's making a wide
he's
turn.
got a wide turn. He's got plenty of room.
I know, I just don't box him in. That's a big vehicle. I feel his pain.
I feel like it'd be tough to drive a school bus, especially in St. Paul.
Sir Boxing Club. Peace and Arcade. That's a new sign.
35255.
Is that where the Rice Street Rocker used to box?
No, that was Race Street boxing gym.
Oh,
Mauricio used to.
yeah.
So that's it. So the owner of that gym. What we're talking about. If you ever frequent Arcade and Case Surf Boxing Club, the owner of that is Mauricio Fort. He's an old amateur boxer turned pro. Had a decent local career and regional career. Fought some well-known guys like Caleb Truex, who was a world champ at one time. Caleb Truex from Minnesota. Mauricio Fort has owned that gym. He's, I don't know how long now. It used to be up off of Arcade in Wheelock Parkway, up by Johnson High School. But Mauricio used to fight out of Rice Street as well, years ago. But I follow him on Facebook. I know Mauricio from when I was younger through my older brothers. But he runs an awesome gym. He dedicates a lot of time to the youth. It's not cheap to run those. It's not profitable. A lot of people that run those gyms are doing it because they love the sport and they love giving these kids an avenue. It's very inexpensive to get into boxing from a athlete standpoint. So, you give up a lot of your free time too. Go to these out of town tournaments or
Well, say, why is boxing expensive?
Why is it expensive? So if you own the gym,
Buy a set of gloves and you're good to go.
yeah, but as far as the gym owner, he's not taking in, what's the fees like, $70 a month. It's very minuscule. So the overhead costs to keep that gym open, equipment, and you have these regional tournaments, Upper Midwest Golden Gloves tournaments, or if let's say they go up to Duluth for the weekend because one of the Duluth gyms is putting on a fight card. A lot of the times you're paying out of your own pocket to bring these kids up, in a van and helping putting them up for the weekend. So it's a lot of self-sacrifice these boxing coaches do. A lot of fundraising too, that helps provide for the kids, but it's not as prevalent. But I tell you what, it's a good way to get these kids off the street, get them into something, teach them some self-discipline, a little self-defense, used the right way. It's a good combination.
Corvette.
This is where his gym used to be, right here, the Arcade Business Center.
261 University, on a female down in the grassy area, in her 20s in a black coat.
Do we all drive unmarked squads? In our unit, yes. We still have all the lights and sirens and stuff, but
Yes, we're plainclothes unmarked unit, element of surprise. Again, we a lot of stuff we're going at circles around violent crime. Just gives us an advantage.
513, 508, 506, I'll show you up there.
Whatever came of that Rice Street call. School one.
I haven't heard anything else, so. I think squads are just hanging out.
Okay.
Oh, Melissa's great niece. Birthday today, too. I don't know her name.
Well, happy birthday anyway, right?
Great niece. Happy birthday, Melissa's great niece.
It's a nice day for a birthday. You can still potentially do something outside.
Yeah? What day is it? November 15th? My sister's birthday is in 4 days.
November babies are awesome.
Are
Or
they?
biased. My youngest son is a November baby.
2730 Herschel at Harbor.
When's your birthday?
You don't know?
You know what? Actually, I have it on my phone. I
Yeah.
did save it. Yeah, I know. I wish you a happy birthday that day.
I had to remind you that it was my birthday.
I still wish you.
Doesn't count if you have to remind
You didn't remind me. You said, "Hey,"
I said, is there anything you want to tell me today? And you're like, no.
and then I did save it in my phone, I believe.
Yeah.
It was in September.
Nope.
October?
October.
October 12th.
Nope.
19th.
Nope.
13th.
Nope.
1 through 31.
You got it.
515. We are not going to need medics.
Red. No, you early.
No. No. Days like these are, I guess this is part of law enforcement too. There are days where it's just nothing. And there are days you're running call to call to call.
And I mean, in our line of work, days like today, if nobody's car's getting stolen, that's good. So,
It's a win.
it's a win. house resided too. I've been waiting. I can't remember. I mean, we're halfway through November.
Yeah?
I can't remember a day this hot halfway through November.
No.
339. 339. Is there a Corinne speaking officer that could help us out here?
Any Corinne speaking officers on Channel 3?
Let's see here.
Still not Tango. We could assist with that.
Nothing.
That'd be great, thank you.
Are they still out on that? Stolen?
4440, I'll take the alarm.
Nope.
Happy.
$44.98 can assist.
Happy 4490 also.
You know what? This is giving people extra time if you didn't get your leaves cleaned up.
Do you rake your leaves and stuff?
I don't have any leaves.
107, call confidential
So-
supervisor, please.
Every year I have a riding lawnmower,
You just mulch them.
and I just mulch them up. But I heard, and I don't know if this is true, and I don't remember where I even heard it.
Yeah, we booked 442.
I heard that if you don't rake them up or mulch them up, it's actually good for your grass. I don't know, but that's just what I'm going with this year. Doing a little little experiment.
All right.
374.
I feel like you're gonna have a big mess come spring.
45 Hudson Road, apartment
Maybe.
107, the Parkway Garden Apartments. Just medics, they're on scene, they're requesting police for a child who might need placement.
Joe Kill had a white pickup truck flee in this area yesterday. Minding his own business, his truck took off on him down an alleyway. He lost his lumber. So if that was
wood in the back of the truck.
if that was you, we might know where your wood is if you want to speak to us.
Yeah, I mean, with the price of lumber these days, it might be worth it.
Yeah, he just took off and kill. Obviously, that raised his level of suspicion, but
It's definitely a clue when we're driving around and someone just starts fleeing before we even notice them.
that it is.
It's kind of a dead giveaway.
Trip.
Painting some lines.
That guy's wearing
If there's a squad they can assist,
cut off
another
sleeves
medical
halfway through
at
January.
Johnson High School,
Or, I'm sorry,
1349 or State Street.
jeez.
This is the second floor.
You're just trying to wish winter
Oh,
away.
18-year-old
man.
female was assaulted by another student. Suspect is GOA.
You guys are getting a good tour of the side streets today.
Yep. Does Joe Kill have a nickname? People want to know. I don't think so. Does
No, I think what his name.
There is one that
Yeah.
can go
His
with
name's like
Friday,
James
don't
Bond. It's just like a, it's just like a
Joe
That's
Kill.
it. It's Joe Kill. I think people back in the day maybe came up with some names for him, but I just call him by his last name.
It's not a very common last name.
No, so it fits.
Conscious breathing, feeling weak, has a cough.
I don't think everybody needs a nickname.
Did Brian ever get one?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, Brian is just I did hear what he was calling me last week.
Everything.
Oh, his nickname he has for you?
His nickname he's throwing around for me that will not catch on.
Heard your mom liked it.
Oh, stop it. Jumbo Joe. That is not a thing.
I like Odie.
Yeah, me too.
like
People
it.
call me that my whole life.
26,
Yeah, you call me. I guess I don't care.
1024 Mercury Drive. This is medics for the 77-year-old male who has unwitnessed call. 1449.
So what do we got? We got 3 Joes down here?
Joe,
and Joe?
We got me, Joe Miller, Joe Kill.
Copy, 1445.
Only one Tomcat.
You know what? Whatever allows you to come to work and enjoy your day, sir.
255, you can take 4.
You're right back on.
There is nothing moving today.
Nope.
1522.
522.
See that one?
30 downtown, the afternoon squads roll around. Yes. 523.
Did that show a previous
Can you come meet me
Wisconsin
in
plate?
front of 345 seater with a squad car?
No.
Copy, enough.
Whiskey plate.
Whiskey plate.
Sorry.
These new hits are weird.
Government issued plates.
These new hits are weird.
Yeah, I know. They updated it.
Yeah.
There's a new page in there.
Have a good day, 1447.
We're good.
528, the same.
Have a good day, 1447.
What is it? Come get it.
4029, do anything?
What's your... All right.
Carry on? Oh, look at
Carry
this
on.
new bridge. This is Butte.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they just gonna let the metal rust like that?
Oh, it's, I don't know. Looks good.
You'd think they'd paint it, huh?
I don't build bridges, I guess.
I don't
know.
either.
It's the rustic style.
44.2.
Happy cool for 1448.
Minnesota Wild are in Sweden?
Yeah, I'm not too excited about them.
I'm not. Hey, you know one thing? They can finally put the puck in the net, but the one year they can do that, their defense and goaltending are just something else. Oof.
You're right back.
You know, I
255.
always have such high hopes for them, and then
I just spoke with our mom.
They've been putting up
crashing down.
What, last couple years? 100-point years?
You can clear this.
where is this Kirill the Thrill been?
Yeah.
Copy.
Still averaging a point a game, though. You can't blame him. Our goaltending and defense is... Whoa. Gus Bus was supposed to be the, this was his year to take over as the, starter, and he just hasn't done it. Old Flurry's back in net
Old McFlurry.
last so many games, and he's really good. He's just he's such a springy goaltender that he ends up out of position a lot.
He takes a lot of risks. A lot of times it pays off, but
When it doesn't, it's not good looking.
6-4.
But gotta love him. Guy's gonna be a Hall of Famer. He's just padding the stats.
I got to watch him at a game once at the X. It was pretty cool to see him play.
Yeah, he's a very unorthodox goaltender. Another year in Minnesota sports, sir.
Do you think we'll ever see a championship in our lifetime?
Like of the one of the major sports?
Yeah.
Copy 40.
If I don't, I'm gonna have to become a Packers fan.
There's 30 other teams I root for before them.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's
9-6.
we have to, right? Well, they won in '91. Technically, I was alive when the Twins won this pennant.
Not me.
I was like 3 months old.
Not me. I have yet to see. One. I have heard a lot of people are hyping up the Timberwolves this year, but basketball just isn't something
it's not. I don't
follow it. But
it's not one of the major
if
sports.
they make it to the playoffs, I'd probably watch them. Just like the Twins. I don't watch baseball, but I watch them in the playoffs, so it's kind of cool. I'm a fair weather fan.
I can't get into basketball.
I can't either. I don't know enough about it to. If you don't know enough about a sport, it's tough to watch. So you don't appreciate what they're doing.
2267 Tango.
I know enough not to.
2267 Tango.
It's just not my cup of tea. A lot of people love it,
Traffic,
though. They are inexpensive tickets, so I mean,
Yellow,
for people with kids that are looking for sporting events, it's a lot more affordable than, let's say, like a Vikings or a Wild game. Those and Twins tickets.
Yeah.
I haven't been to a Target Center in a long time, but it used to be a really cool venue.
I was there once, and it was probably like 2010. It was an Ozzy Osbourne concert. I'm not even an Ozzy fan, but a buddy's called me. Whoever he was going with canceled last second, so he called me, and I was like, yeah, I'll go.
The last 2 times I went were the last 2 UFC events. When Lesnar fought here, and then
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, that was when he fought Herring. But then what was the last one? Francis Ngannou.
Yep.
I forget who the main event was, but Damian Maia was on the card. That was an okay card. It was. Alright. Problem with going to those events, you get the people who then wanna
It's just
fight.
full of drunk guys who now want to fight.
Yeah. I'm just here to enjoy it.
You know, like I heard a lot of bars and stuff don't show the fights because you get people drinking, watching fights. A lot of fights happen.
B-dubs used to show all the pay-per-view.
Yep, I think they still...
Boxing and UFC.
They still might, I don't know.
It is cool. If you ever have a chance to go to a live UFC event, it's cool. They're long days, though. They're prelims.
Oh, I know.
The prelims
they're like
are
6 hours long.
They start... the fights, I think the prelims start at like 2.
Well, there's early prelims, and then there's prelims. And then there's the main card.
It's insane. Even if I had tickets, I wouldn't go that early. That's a long day of watching fights. There's literally nothing. I feel bad. I feel good. Citizens of Ramsey County.
I know. I feel good, but it's like I want to put on a show, you know.
6 for clearances.
Our patrol officers are up in the contract cities, keeping the city safe.
1454.
Suburbs are relatively quiet. Dude, shocker is St. Paul on such a nice day.
It's quiet down here in St. Paul. Have you ever been here? Foundry?
No.
I haven't either.
They have pizza. They probably have they probably have 6-packs. Pizza.
Oh, your little Haggis deal?
Oh. Who else has them?
4441.
40 at the holiday. Sorry, yeah, holiday. At the
Made one the other day.
Did you?
Males that have already been
Underrated as
back in the
as far as a
9 to 13 years old. One is like
frozen pizza goes.
One is on a 10 hoodie. Maplewood has the blue camouflage.
Where is this?
I looked at something. It's nothing.
Forward copies from the PD. 44.
You believe me now?
I guess when I referenced, I was referencing the one getting called out. Not the
4256.
suspicious.
4446. Cancel 40 and close your feature on the corner.
We're on different
Copy
pages than that
40,
one.
clear.
Yep. I'm doing 12
Pretty
different
good.
things.
You're a multitasker from way back. Days like this make me sleepy.
4452, I'll be out.
Copy.
You'll be on PD.
Copy 4490. Copy 4257.
Coming up to Rice Street.
456, checking your status.
Go for it.
What time? Yeah, kids are 3 o'clock. Kids are going to be out. Oh yeah.
Yep, school buses.
Copy 1457.
That was always, my least favorite. Getting off the school bus and having, a couple hours of sunlight before in the winter.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on this daylight savings? I say just leave it alone.
Change once and never change again.
Yeah, it's the same time year round. What's the point? I mean, you're not gaining anything by putting the clocks back an hour. Instead of it getting dark now at 6 o'clock, now it's dark here at 5. It's like, why do we do that?
I don't know.
Is it so it's lighter out in the morning? I'd rather it be lighter out in the evening. I don't know. When I worked night shift, there was a couple months there where I would never see the sun. I'd wake up at about 4:30 at night, and it was dark out. Go to work all night, go to bed, it'd still be dark out. Wake up, dark out. Do not miss those days.
Patrol days? Or the midnight days?
The midnight shift days, overnight shift during these short days.
I would say that's the best shift to work. I mean, not for personal life, but if I had the most fun on midnights.
Yeah, I would agree.
Copy 5600.
That's suspicious.
do these.
Oh, look at that now. Rice Street's blocked out.
Yeah, it's completely blocked.
That's no bueno.
So, I'm trying to read this. So this will show you this stuff, that car. That's from that date.
Yeah, that's weird. By 2266. 2515 Lake Avenue.
242.
What date?
251 still riding. So this will be reported with 251, 176, and James unit.
I wonder why.
It's probably stolen at one time.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
Bravo 760 EOT.
Have a good night, 1501.
What's it? Keeps coming there.
Yeah, some don't park in there the last few days. What do we got?
139 Tango.
Dumpster in the middle of the
That
street.
was there. Here, someone called that in.
139 Tango.
Milton and Thomas.
107, copy. Squad to assist. Can I have you break and search this assault at Milton and Thomas? The caller is screaming that the nephew attacked her, or them, rather, and yelling that he has a gun. We're waiting on further.
139 Tango, copy.
179, I copy and route to assist.
Copy.
Forward to that one.
Might as well.
156, you can leave this advised with 157. You can go ahead and send that to me.
Copy and for squad info. Looks like the suspect pointed the gun at the cop. Just in a black Camaro, no plates. His name is Damon Patton. He's in his 40s, gray t-shirt, black jeans. Seen heading towards Lexington.
We're floating to this Milton and Thomas call. Heading towards Lexington. Yeah.
Call is not seen at 2281 4th Street. Her husband fell from the stairway inside a detached garage.
Black Camaro, no plates.
Yep.
Anything in our RMS?
Yeah, I'm
About
trying to
that
figure out
Camaro.
which one he is. 40s. Might be this guy.
Oh,
One of them.
oh. Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Oh, hey there, pal.
Hey. Hello.
I did make one officer out of the PD.
Let's see if he's got.
4440, I'm not sure.
I guess we'll just look for the Camaro, huh?
Camaro should stick out.
Copy 40
you know?
for 40, 40
Went
for
towards
90.
Lex, we'll go to, what do you think, haha, and cut over?
There's a holdable alarm
See what we come up with?
going off at the DMV part of the City Hall.
4495, you can disregard it. It's maintenance.
So I think
Copy. Looks clear.
nephew pointed a handgun.
Yeah, nephew pointed a handgun at the caller, and he fled in a black Camaro.
No plates.
Not too far away. We don't have any
Calling
plate
for
info.
mulching on her daughter. Who
Oh,
lives with her boyfriend at the
that's
address. Boyfriend has that history of being physically and verbally abusive towards the daughter.
They gave a plate 9.
9 Nora Frank 304.
It is a. Yeah.
2017 Camaro. Interesting.
Copy that.
Well, pay attention.
There's redstone.
358 Tango, can we start medics this way for still female?
We're going to this guy. We're going to pull him over.
Unconscious, bleeding. Kevin?
Guy was a little eager on that red light.
You have clear.
You'd have to pop it up.
Let's see if I got any hits on that Camaro.
For your information, the boyfriend's going to be a River Carney, 5 male, 5'11", 180 pounds, red hair and a beard, Also has access to gun in an apartment. Has threatened to use it on the daughter multiple times in the past.
Oh. No tailgate.
No. Think he broke his something going
Something
the alleys?
happened there for sure.
What intersection was that at? I'm gonna pull it up. I'll air it to kill.
We'll have to look. Let's see, it was about Minnehaha and
150.
Western.
No, it wasn't one of those.
Here's some vehicles
this
south
one?
on Lexington. We just came from
Arundel?
Cole Park south on Lexington. There's two
Minnehaha and
vehicles.
Arundel.
Rundle?
Yeah.
D1.
Kill, you free of that car yet?
Express copy.
206.
2267 Tango.
7 Tango.
We're mid-transport from our stop location at 1411 within the toll now.
Copy. Put you on.
2717.
2717.
Can you clear my status, please?
Copy. 207.
Taken for
139 Tango is actually going to be Milton and Minnehaha. He's been advised to flag you down when he sees you.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
1507.
let's see here.
Hey Liam, just be advised, I'm just getting on 35E here, so you're probably going to beat me there by maybe a minute or two.
Let's see what we got. All over.
I'll be out of the
Yeah.
with the boxes.
Received this.
531.
531.
Show me in 536 to COE at City Hall.
Loaded.
Nothing. Alright.
18 Minnehaha. Car same. Yeah,
Pulling into 2378 Long Lake Road, 5 North George, 924.
Yeah, Fairview.
Copy. 2378 Long Lake. 59.
Six four in the area.
6459.
Whoops. Drop my phone.
Well, we did not see a Camaro. Looks like St. Paul coming in the area. Didn't see anything anyways.
139 Tango.
Alright, let's check some highway written
Please
comments.
advise medics the chief complaint is just a knocked out tooth.
Copy. And for squad info, Emmerich was able to determine a possible updated address for the suspect of 1037 St. Anthony in unit number 1 in 41510.
Is that the gun pointing
You said?
guy? Is that the gun pointing guy?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
1037.
Copy. Receive.
139 Tango updated subject description.
That's
Go ahead.
south of Union. Flex.
Okay.
Be a black male, black pants, black shoes, gray top.
Letting him holding an auto residential line.
Abby.
9271, go ahead.
We're clear with this medical and head to the alarm.
Copy. 4695 Sharon Lane. Covering the garage service door.
Copy.
Fire.
Play to sister. I'll be out with the subject.
Can we repeat the male's name?
Damon Marlowe Patton. Showing a date of birth of 4/11/76.
You like White Castle?
Yes. In small doses.
Yeah, I mean, I can eat it like once or twice a
156
year.
at 1037 St. Anthony.
Copy. And be advised, we have the suspect calling in, is requesting a phone call and wanting to know if our comp had actually called the police. No update on his whereabouts.
Call him.
Copy.
Phone call. Black Camaro.
17.
Was it uncle or aunt?
Nephew.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing the caller is the aunt. Well, it says, yeah. Uncle.
Must really not like your uncle if you.
Nephew attacked cop. He has a gun. So an uncle and a nephew got an argument. At some point, a gun was pointed at somebody, allegedly.
Up the APD at White Bear in case 15.
The guy allegedly with the gun flees and calls the police asking if someone called the police on him. Interesting.
456. Checking your status.
Go for it.
He said 1037 was clear, huh?
1037. I think he said he was out.
That's him over there, driving away from it, so.
I guess it's a big parking lot.
Black Camaro.
check the comments here. Crime question. Describe what a crime analyst does on a daily basis. So, they actually do a ton. They do a lot of behind the scenes, unappreciated stuff, like mapping, like a lot of our stolen cars and stuff. Intel, they do a lot of mapping, heat maps, so we can look and see where, you know, hot spots are.
Think of they're like a cloud storage server. They are always taking in info. So if there's a crime that happens that is of note, so whether it's for our CAT team, you know, shootings, homicides, robberies, you name it, they're gathering reports, dissecting the reports, whether it's suspect info. And
I mean, even like, you know, there are so many police departments out there. They're the ones who are in contact with the other ones, getting reports from them. So there's no way we, working a case, can just automatically know if something happened in like Minnetonka last night. So they're just constantly in communication with other analysts. They do a ton of stuff. So a lot of computer work. A lot of spreadsheets, mapping.
a lot of the analysts honestly know all these suspects, groups, all that better than a lot of investigators and police officers. Because I mean, their basic job is essentially, if there's info out there that is of note that needs to be pulled in, that's their job. Whether it's reports, monitoring crime pages. As he said, if someone's arrested in Minnetonka that may have been involved in other crimes, they're usually the first ones to know about it. Then they, you probably see in the news a lot, or some of those crime pages where it's a detailed narrative of a crime spree. Well, majority of the time, that's a crime analyst that pieces that all together, and it's actually pretty impressive what they put together, the product they produce. That how they link it is sometimes mind-boggling. It can be the smallest, minute thing that they find, that they go down a rabbit hole and they dig up this, an individual from St. Paul who committed a huge crime spree throughout the metro, stemming 3 different counties, multiple agencies. In the long run, that's going to help a lot of agencies get charges. And a lot of that is not done without crime analysts. The networking. Yeah, I mean, they're experts at technology. So,
have the backseaters met Fran?
Yeah, he was out a couple weeks ago with
Fran
Pat.
He's an analyst, supervisor. Carly, she's another one. She was hoping to get out live on patrol one of these days. Well, Sabrina, I'd say we got I'm a little biased, but it's probably the best ones around.
We do. They are so in tune with what's going on in the metro. Not only just here, because all the stuff that the CAT team delves into, we've preached it. We've news articles on it. These individuals that commit crimes don't know jurisdictions. They don't know boundaries, right?
Yep.
Just because they're committing a crime right now in Minneapolis doesn't mean it's not my priority, because they've already committed 1 or 2 in Ramsey County.
Yep.
And they're going to come back here and commit more. Whether it's they live here, they're going to bring stolen cars back. They're going to come back here with stolen credit cards. That all needs to be in our view, and
that's what an analyst does for us.
It does.
That was a great question.
It was.
Thank you for that question.
They're like the Swiss Army knife of a police department.
Yeah, they really are. We couldn't do what we did without our analysts, so.
Then you got Slet's analyst. Then you obviously have Joe Miller, who's an Intel deputy. He's obviously a licensed peace officer, so he does a lot of the same stuff, but he has the ability to do exactly what we're doing, you know, write warrants, make arrests. So as a valuable asset, someone who is as brilliant and smart as he is, with the ability to act as a peace officer. So.
Thank you, 1521.
And honestly, the way the world's going, every police department or specialty unit investigator should have an analyst attached to them. It is you'd honestly get a lot of bang for your buck there.
Oh, yes.
Please change to an assist citizen and will be assisted with 523 533.
A lot of people don't know what White Castle is.
Whoa. Jalapeno slider?
I mean, if you haven't had White Castle, you ain't living.
Chicken ring sandwich?
Oh, the best.
They have the best chocolate shakes.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there.
No, they do. Don't say Culver's does, because that's...
I was just going to say Culver's definitely
It's custard.
does. Whatever.
I guess my favorite chocolate shake is White Castle.
Really?
What's the subject? 5022.
Get a couple jalapeno sliders and a sack of fries and a chocolate shake. I mean, I'm probably going to bed early that night, but...
35, you're clear.
Well, it's about almost 3:30. Nothing happened today.
Literally nothing. We tried.
We covered some ground. We put on some miles on the old saddle, but interesting. Something good.
Vehicle driving recklessly through the residential neighborhood. Speeding, swerving. 716 XEW.
I gotta tighten that, don't I?
Yeah, I keep. Give us the ding. 2010 on a
Nothing. Well, what do you think? I think that's a wrap for today.
Yeah, it's kind of, I suppose.
Kind of
Sorry we didn't get into anything.
Oh, shucks. Well, any words of wisdom for the backseaters?
Me?
Yeah, Joe.
No. I don't think so.
Enjoy the weather if you're here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
It's not going to last.
We will, is the sheriff on Friday?
I cannot speak to that, sir.
I can't either. So I won't.
All right. Well, you guys have a great evening. We appreciate your riding, and we'll try again next
Meet Bob Fletcher, Ramsey County's most controversial cop. Wednesday, July 8, 2009 by Matt Snyders for City Pages. Bob Fletcher is a man under siege, but you wouldn't know it by looking at him. Fletcher proceeds through the Ramsey County Sheriff Department's third-floor offices with the detached ease of a man strolling through his own living room. With his Roman nose and deep-set eyes, he bears a passing resemblance to Fred Gwynn of Munster's fame. "This is it," he says, motioning to the fluorescent-illuminated surroundings with a quick sweep of his right hand. Given his reputation, you expect to see a smoke-stained bulletin board scrawled with esoteric flowcharts detailing the internal structures of leftist groups. But no, just a dozen or so offices branching off a tennis court-sized room in which his employees cradle antiquated phone receivers. This is where it all happens. During his 15 years manning this post, it has entailed many projects. The Metro Gang Strike Force, one of Fletcher's first and most cherished endeavors, is currently the subject of an FBI probe. After a state audit revealed glaring deficiencies in keeping track of seized evidence, guns, dope, cash, and especially cars, the Department of Public Safety announced an investigation. Hearing this, Fletcher's men made haste to the strike force's New Brighton headquarters and shredded documents. Fletcher maintains they were just clearing out their desks. Others aren't so sure. This isn't the first time Fletcher has found himself embroiled in controversy. Those who've crossed his path use words like ruthless, combative, and pugnacious to describe his personality. When the County Board of Commissioners cut his budget in 1999, Fletcher employed an unusually strong negotiating tactic. He sued the board. "Bob's Bob," says Ramsey County Commissioner Tony Bennett, who sounds exhausted just remembering the suit a decade later. "He'll get there any way it takes to get there." Fletcher was in the national spotlight during the Republican National Convention in St. Paul. The weekend before, Fletcher deployed armed agents to raid several houses known to be occupied by protesters, arresting the residents on charges of conspiracy to riot. Fletcher pointed to 3 buckets of urine as evidence that anarchists were indeed plotting destruction in St. Paul, but the containers were later revealed to hold discolored water, yet Fletcher remains unfazed, even defiant. Frankly, except for their political party associations, he kind of reminds me of Richard Nixon, says David Gross, a former Minneapolis city prosecutor who first encountered Fletcher in the mid-90s. This latest gang strike force stuff kind of reminds you of Nixon's claim of executive privilege. It is because I say it is.
Fletcher couldn't bring him down. Every sinew straining under his singlet, the 17-year-old Fletcher heaved his 180 pounds at the opponent across the wrestling mat, to no avail. More than once, his opponent ducked, leveraged Fletcher's own weight against him, and scored a takedown. That was how Fletcher lost at the 1972 regionals, just one step removed from the state wrestling tournament. He never got pinned that day, as Fletcher is keen on noting. In fact, he never got pinned during his entire high school wrestling career. His handful of losses all came by points. "I was a hair on the conservative side," Fletcher says ruefully. "As I look back, I think I could have been a more successful wrestler if I was willing to take some risks." Upon graduating, Fletcher enrolled at Hamline University, where he studied political science and played linebacker on the football team. Halfway through his senior year, while standing in line at a Burger King in St. Paul, Fletcher noticed a flyer taped to the wall. The St. Paul Police Department was looking for new recruits. A career in law enforcement had immense appeal to the ex-athlete. He had both the physical tools and a strong desire to immerse himself in the city's grit. "I loved working the streets at midnight," he says. "You see a lot of different things. You're out there on your own, so it's a challenging requirement." After 4 years of hustling the patrol beat, arresting drug dealers and thieves, Fletcher was ready to start dealing with the disease instead of the symptoms. In 1982, he decided to run for city council. It was an audacious move for a 26-year-old who was virtually unknown within St. Paul political circles. If he won, he'd be a decade younger than any other council member. But as unlikely as his campaign may have seemed, it was spectacularly well-timed. To deal with a recession-induced budget shortfall, Mayor George Latimer had cut 100 city cops and firefighters. Fletcher, already plugged into the law enforcement community, courted the public safety vote by promising to oppose any additional cuts. Bob is a cop all the way to the core, says Dave Titus, president of the St. Paul Police Federation. His main concern has always been public safety. The campaign pitted Fletcher against incumbent George McMahon. While McMahon was hashing out financial minutiae in City Hall, Fletcher made the rounds, establishing himself as a neighborhood guy, as he puts it. It was enough to give him a narrow win. The freshman council member wasted no time making his presence known. Every issue, even those as perfunctory as the renewal processes for cable television franchises, had Fletcher coming down hard on one side or the other. And if he didn't see an issue his way, Fletcher would linger on his point, even after meetings were over. He would go after things and not give up, says Jim Scheibel, who was a rookie council member that same year. Bob just sometimes wouldn't let things go while on the council. He and I usually got along, but sometimes after he made his point, he just wouldn't let it go. 7 years later, the two men found themselves squaring off on a larger public stage. Scheibel, a Democrat, and Fletcher, an independent, ran against each other for mayor of St. Paul in 1989. The differences couldn't have been starker. Fletcher had prowled the streets as a hardened cop. The bookish Scheibel had canvassed the streets as community organizer. Fletcher perceived crime and corruption to be the biggest threats the city. Scheibel was most concerned with homelessness and hunger. Fletcher played football for Hamline. Scheibel would go on to teach there. Because of his party affiliation, Scheibel was closely associated with Mayor Latimer, whose popularity was on the wane. Fletcher hammered on the connection. During debates, the former police officer fashioned himself as a change agent, an independent straight shooter with no allegiance to the entrenched establishment. The strategy didn't quite work. On November 8, 1989, the citizens of St. Paul took to the polls and elected Scheibel by a margin of 12%, 56 to 44. Fletcher returned to the St. Paul Police Department disappointed, but undeterred. Now a lieutenant in the juvenile unit, he focused on gang prevention. 3 years in, Fletcher felt he was ready for a cross-departmental promotion, one that would require the voters' approval. Fletcher's campaign for Ramsey County Sheriff in 1993 was, like his stab at the city council, impeccably timed. For the first time in 60 years, the last two candidates standing were department outsiders. Fletcher had been a fixture of St. Paul. His gruff rival, Tony Bennett, was a U.S. Marshal and former state representative. It was anybody's race. The public mood favored a law and order type with local, on-the-streets credentials. Violent crime in the metro was rising. In 1987, there were 12 murders in St. Paul. By 1992, that figure had jumped to 33. Across the river, the term Murderapolis had just been coined. Gangs, it seemed, were everywhere. With his first-hand anecdotes about arresting drug dealers and working hand-in-hand with communities on gang prevention, Fletcher had a built-in advantage, and he wasn't above hyping the threat. "This is just a blip on the radar screen," he'd say in both debates and interviews. "We're about to hit a gigantic wave of crime." Recognizing the political realities of Ramsey County, both Fletcher and Bennett ran as Democrats. But for Bennett, it was a harder sell. This was a guy who'd been an independent Republican as a state representative, and whom George H.W. Bush had tapped for the U.S. Marshal post. At times, the campaign got nasty. Bennett remembers walking outside his house one morning and finding his water pipe bent. He couldn't help but wonder whether a Fletcher supporter had a hand in it. "Someone had to have kicked it," says Bennett, now a Ramsey County Commissioner. "I don't know who did it, but it's strange that the only damage to my house in 25 years came during that campaign." Fletcher's biggest tactical advantage came from the rapport he established with the rank and file. During the months preceding the election, he gathered Ramsey County deputies in groups of 5 or 6 at various coffee shops and delis across town and laid out his vision for the department. He told them he wanted to professionalize it by adding more patrol units. At the time, the department centered mostly on jail operations. He wanted his men to take a more proactive approach to fighting crime. The talks resonated with his prospective deputies, most of whom preferred in-the-field action to the dreary monotony of administrative chores. Also, his ambition and enthusiasm struck many as a sure indicator of competence. Their present boss, Sheriff Charles Zacharias, was much more laid back. That contrast alone was appealing. Fletcher was more of a go-getter than Zacharias, says retired Deputy Mike Tatzik. He had it in his mind to implement a lot of things, like hiring more Hmongs on board. And he was bigger on the cross the TS.this type of stuff. In the last months of the campaign, about 70 Ramsey County deputies took up the cause, going door to door, handing out literature, and getting the word out for Fletcher. On November 8, 1994, Fletcher was elected sheriff, capturing 58% of the vote. With a mandate from the electorate, Fletcher entered the Ramsey County Sheriff's Department with the added bonus of having the majority of subordinates on board with his ambitious agenda from day one. But that nearly unanimous support wouldn't last long.
At first, Deputy Mike Burke didn't know what to make of Fletcher. A decorated 15-year veteran in the Sheriff's Department, Burke understood and accepted the political realities that came with the job. When a new sheriff came in, it was common to appoint trusted intimates, acquaintances made in other departments, or while coming up the ranks to the inner circle. But with Fletcher, it was beyond anything Burke had seen before. Other sheriffs didn't bring it down to the deputy ranks, says Burke. Fletcher did. Unless you were a part of his political machine, you got nowhere. The only way you could move up was by selling your soul. Early in his first term, Fletcher began creating new units that, as promised, introduced more in-the-field positions. He didn't create these jobs out of thin air, he reshuffled personnel from the detention division to his newly formed units. It was in line with Fletcher's vow to shift the department's emphasis from jailing to arresting. This included the creation of an apprehension unit, a team of a half-dozen deputies sent out to investigate and arrest low to mid-level criminals. Among others was a newly constructed fugitive task force, which focused on at-large perps, and a special investigations unit, which pursued the kind of high-level criminals you see on the wire. The common thread that ran through the newly created positions was that they were highly desirable. They carried with them a certain level of excitement and prestige. And with so many of these jobs suddenly up for grabs, some veterans started to notice a pattern: seniority played little role in the selections. Fletcher was effectively hand-picking the appointees. Political fealty to Fletcher appeared to be the #1 criterion. The way he wanted to use personnel made it clear how power-hungry he was, says a retired deputy who asked that his name be withheld. He wanted total control. People who believed they would be in positions of authority due to seniority were replaced by his supporters. Further hurting morale was the suspicion that some in the ranks were moles looking for reward by reporting back to the boss. Topics discussed in the locker room came up in staff meetings. The suspicions were so widespread, there was a nickname for suspected snitches. We called them internal informants, the retired deputy says. In 2001, Lieutenant John Moore decided to challenge his boss in the next election for sheriff. A 20-year veteran of the department, Moore supervised the 8-man patrol division. With his entrance into the campaign, the divide in the department grew more evident. Sides were chosen, lines drawn. Burke, for his part, threw his support behind Moore's campaign, of which he made no secret. As he would soon learn, supporting his boss's opponent came with a price. One day in an elevator, when a Fletcher supporter asked Burke if he was supporting Moore, Burke was honest. "Yes, that's right," he recalls saying. He then added jokingly, "I guess this isn't a real good move for my political career." No, answered the supporter. It isn't. Burke received a letter 1 week later informing him that he was being transferred. His days with the apprehension unit, working the street and arresting criminals, were over. He'd been reassigned to the transportation unit, a position he bitterly describes as a glorified cab driver. In July 2001, Moore was summoned by Fletcher. The sheriff told him that he was transferring him to the apprehension unit, a lowly destination for a lieutenant. No officer ranked as high as lieutenant had ever served there. Moore remembered he had informed his colleague Dennis Flaherty, a Fletcher supporter, of his intent to run for sheriff just 10 days earlier. Fletcher's parting words confirmed his worst suspicions. "By the way," he said, "I spoke to Flaherty." This exchange would come out in a lawsuit Moore filed in 2006. Joining the suit was Sergeant Joyce Shaughnessy, who had campaigned extensively for Moore and found herself similarly transferred. The case never went to trial. The circumstances and evidence were strong enough in the plaintiff's favor to compel attorneys for Ramsey County and Fletcher to settle. The settlement cost Ramsey County taxpayers $750,000.
Mark Nalen and Deputy Timothy Rahek entered room 503 in the Kelly Inn in downtown St. Paul and began searching. They checked the closets, peered under the beds. They had been tipped off that a drug dealer named Vinny had been arrested in Wisconsin that night and had left his smack and cash somewhere in this room. They opened the top drawer of a small dresser nestled between 2 queen-sized beds and found a small black duffel bag. They tossed the bag onto a bed, unzipped it, and peered inside. No drugs, but wads of unmarked bills. If they took the time to count it, they'd know they were looking at $13,500. Nalen casually handed a stack of bills to Rahek, who pocketed it. Little did they know, they were under FBI surveillance. Nalen had been the subject of a federal investigation for nearly a year. Of particular interest was Nalen's association with the Hells Outcasts, an East Metro-based motorcycle gang with a history of drug smuggling. For months, local, state, and federal agencies had been flummoxed in their efforts to nab ranking members of the gang. Targets always seemed to slip through their fingers at the last second. Officers began to suspect that Nalen, who was prone to boasting about his close relationships with known high-end criminals, was thwarting their efforts. On a chilly early November night in 2004, the FBI had set up a sting operation in the Kelly Inn, what's known in bureau parlance as an integrity test. Nalen had failed miserably. The bust came as no surprise to those who knew him in the Ramsey County Sheriff's Department. When Nalen came on board, says a former officer, the question on everyone's minds was, what's he doing here? A former lobbyist for the horse racing industry, Nalen had a conceal and carry permit and his own squad car, despite having never attended 1 minute of police academy. An unlicensed civilian, he incited his co-workers' ire and derision by sending them on the law enforcement equivalent of wild goose chases. He'd call from a bar and offer a lead, telling them a highly sought-after suspect was drinking at the end of the bar or shooting pool. We'd race over there, and the guy we were looking for was never there, says a former deputy. Oh, he left 5 minutes ago, he'd say. He always had an excuse. He also had a connection. Nalen met Fletcher through a mutual friend within the St. Paul Police Department. Their first encounter came at a 1993 fundraiser while Nalen was mounting a long-shot run for mayor. Fletcher took an immediate liking to the amiable smooth-talker. Although Fletcher describes their friendship between 1993 and 1998 as sparse, at some point after Fletcher hired Nalen in 1998, they grew tight. In 2004, Fletcher asked Nalen to be the best man at his wedding. He handled all of the media calls, Fletcher says of Nalen's job duties. And I asked him to use any sources that he had on the street to provide our deputies with information. If you knew Mark Nalen, you would know that he has so many friends and associates in all parts of the community. 8 days after Nalen's and Rahek's March 4, 2008, indictment, Fletcher announced the duo would be put on paid leave and would be fired if convicted. In a released statement, he urged the public to resist the temptation to try this case in the media. During the trial in the summer of 2008, Nayland's defense argued that he and Rehak had taken the money as part of an elaborate practical joke that they were playing on their immediate supervisor. The jury didn't buy it. On August 27, 2008, Nayland and his partner were convicted of theft and conspiracy, for which they were sentenced to 30 months in jail. The convictions and accompanying headlines beset Fletcher with charges of cronyism. But the scrutiny was short-lived. In just 5 short days, the Republican National Convention was coming to town. As the city geared up, Fletcher prepped for his close-up.
One day in the fall of 2007, while Fletcher was surfing the net, he came across an online video that sparked his imagination. To the uninitiated, it appeared to be your typical YouTube fare, a crudely edited parody, replete with in-jokes and visual gags. Set to Blondie's One Way or Another, it portrays a shrouded-in black anarchist jumping out of bed, slipping into combat gear, and sprinting through the streets of Minneapolis. She lights a Molotov cocktail and heaves it. It lands in a grill and ignites the charcoal, much to the delight of the black-clad cooks. She hurls a bowling ball at a Navy recruiting center. We see the acronym RABL taped to the ball as it topples over bowling pins, a cheeky nod to the 80s-era Minneapolis-based Revolutionary Anarchist Bowling League. The video ends with the tagline, "We're getting ready." What are you doing? As if to answer the chiding slogan, Fletcher immediately began getting ready in a most unorthodox and ferocious way. He launched an investigation into the group without notifying anyone, not other police departments, not the people who would be tasked with prosecuting any criminals he turned up, not even those on whom his budget depended. "We did not advise the city of St. Paul or their police department on this," Fletcher says. "We didn't advise the city's attorney's office, because knowing about this investigation could have complicated this investigation." He forged ahead, hiring a paid informant to infiltrate the group, in addition to sending his undercover men to major cities across the nation. In doing so, he racked up more than $300,000 in overtime pay and traveling expenses. And since no one had approved the expenditures, the County Board of Commissioners would have been the entity to do so. He was under unusual pressure to produce results. Which may be why, during the months leading up to the RNC, Fletcher, more than any other official, remained convinced that St. Paul would be under siege when the convention rolled into town. He sparked an internal yet much publicized debate with St. Paul Police Chief John Harrington over how many officers were necessary. Fletcher was adamant that more bodies were needed and implored Harrington to recruit the difference. As he usually does, Fletcher won the argument, and St. Paul scrambled to hire 350 additional troops during the 3 weeks leading up to the RNC. Then he went after the anarchists. On the weekend immediately preceding the convention, Fletcher's agents executed warrants on 4 residences housing allegedly violent protesters. Armed, riot gear-clad troopers stormed through the homes, detained dozens of activists, and confiscated political literature as evidence. The raid on the so-called RNC Welcoming Committee Smith Avenue headquarters in St. Paul resulted in felony charges levied against 8 anarchists, later dubbed the RNC 8. That Monday, the first day of the convention, dozens of masked, black-clad anarchists marched down 4th Street in downtown St. Paul. Arriving at the First National Bank building on the corner of Robert Street, a protester kicked in one of the bank's plate glass windows. Spider-web cracks expanded from the impact of the black-booted foot. Another kick. Shattered glass rained down on the sun-roasted pavement. A Macy's window on nearby Cedar Street met a similar fate. Other protesters, meanwhile, knocked over newspaper boxes and turned over garbage bins. This went on for a full 2.5 hours before law enforcement mounted a concerted response. Crowd control responsibility fell on the Mobile Field Force, a team of heavy hitters in full riot gear presided over by Fletcher. For most of that day, however, in contrast to their name, they remained rather immobile. St. Paul police were in the vicinity of the chaos, and had radio communication with the Mobile Field Force, and yet no reinforcements came. Fletcher's men remained along the parade route on Kellogg Boulevard, 5 blocks away. As a result, the anarchists were allowed to wreak havoc on downtown for the better part of the afternoon, with professional photographers and videographers catching all the action. Fletcher says the reason for the mobile field force's delayed response was that his men and their St. Paul counterparts were on different radio frequencies. But both units' higher-ups were housed in the same command center, albeit in adjoining buildings. One could walk from one to the other without stepping foot outside. How could they not have caught word of the chaos? As it turned out, there was poor communication inside the command center, says Fletcher, quickly adding that he regrets his unit didn't respond sooner. However, he continues suddenly, the good part, on balance, was that by allowing them their quote freedom to destroy property, everyone in town suddenly understood that they were here with criminal intent. The benefit that occurred was that the citizenry and powers that be saw that there were 500 to 800 anarchists hellbent on shutting down the convention by any means necessary. This was illuminating to the community to see that what we had warned about was, in fact, a true threat. The totality of it, the clandestine investigation, the police state-like tactics, had many observers wondering how much of the overwhelming force was truly necessary. Colleen Rowley, a former FBI agent turned whistleblower and a Time Person of the Year, has been especially critical of law enforcement's handling of the RNC, particularly Fletcher's decisions. When they started spending the money and started the investigation, they had already started writing the facts, she says. You look stupid if you have all these robocops, these informants, and a year-long investigation, and then nothing comes of it. It will prejudice you to expect the worst. The preemptive raids alone were cause for concern among First Amendment advocates. What happened during those raids is they went in and grabbed any materials they could find, anything Fletcher wanted off the streets, says Teresa Nelson, an attorney with the ACLU of Minnesota. The First Amendment doesn't tolerate that. Improper or not, the investment yielded heaps of information on protesters, as a few would later find out firsthand. On the first day of the RNC, 56-year-old activist Bestie Rosh Gilman was locking up the RNC Welcoming Committee's Convergence Center when a voice called out. "Hey, Betsy," she recalls hearing. A black SUV had pulled up alongside the curb. Fletcher was behind the wheel, accompanied by 2 deputies. Rosh Gilman plodded toward the idling vehicle, sure she was about to be arrested. But Fletcher had a different idea, according to her version of events. He told her that, yes, she was next on the list, but he was willing to make a deal. Knowing her to be the oldest member of the anarchist group, Fletcher said he'd spare her if she would use her influence to quell her fellow anarchists protesting. "I think we can agree we don't want anyone to get hurt," he said, according to her recollection. Rosh Gilman declined the offer. "You know, I have a pretty extensive file on you," continued Fletcher, pulling out a white loose-leaf binder. "Let's see, you were at the WTO protest in Seattle in '99, the IMF protest in D.C. in 2000. More than anything, it was the Orwellian accuracy of Fletcher's rundown that alarmed Rosh Gilman. He was congenial, but in a threatening kind of fashion, says Rosh Gilman. He wanted to scare me with that file. Fletcher has never disputed Rosh Gilman's account. A pending lawsuit by Rosh Gilman may shed more light on the incident.
The room was in utter disarray, shredded documents strewn about the floor, a security camera powered off, a dumpster outside brimming with ribbons of paper. To Commander Chris Ahmad, the Metro Gang Strike Force offices had all the appearances of a crime scene. Fearing the worst, he made a call to Hennepin County, his home department, and arranged to have crime technicians come in and collect evidence. It had begun earlier that day, May 20th, 2009, with the release of a damning report. That morning, the Office of the Legislative Auditor made public a special review examining the Metro Gang Strike Force's inner workings. What they found was so disconcerting that the Department of Public Safety immediately called on the strike force to suspend its operations. Investigators discovered that the strike force couldn't account for 14 seized vehicles and $18,126 in cash. The loose loot, troubling though it was indicative of a more systemic problem. The strike force, it was learned, had scant in-house record-keeping in place, no way to ensure that highly valuable evidence routinely seized in the field, guns, drugs, cash, jewelry, cars, were properly disposed of. Calling the findings serious and disturbing, Legislative Auditor James Nobles announced that a more sweeping probe into the strike force would soon be underway. Hearing this, members of the strike force hightailed it to their office in New Brighton. There, they allegedly shredded documents, tampered with computer files, and were busy boxing up their belongings when West St. Paul Police Chief Bud Shaver, head of the Strike Force Advisory Board, showed up and confronted the cops. Shaver, in turn, called Ahmad, who arrived shortly thereafter to find the aftermath of what appeared to be a hastily carried-out cover-up operation. Fletcher was once again in the headlines. He attributed the unaccounted-for cars and cash to sloppy bookkeeping, and maintained that the officers were merely clearing out their desks. Though he had no direct authority over its operation, Fletcher had always shown a protective interest in the task force. This was, after all, the defining issue that had fueled his first campaign back in 1994, and whose creation was among his top priorities after assuming the post. Former deputies to this day describe the Metro Gang Strike Force as Fletcher's baby. "There's no dispute that I spent a lot of my career addressing gang violence and how to fight it," says Fletcher. "It was obvious to me that we needed to break the cycle of how kids get into gangs." The strike force's genesis came about in late 1996, when Fletcher dispatched his inner circle to the State House to lobby hard for the creation of a force dedicated solely to the perceived scourge of gangs sweeping the state. When it came time to choose a commander for the newly created Minnesota Gang Strike Force in 1997, Fletcher kept it in the family, appointing trusted confidant Ron Ryan to the post. A close friend to Fletcher since their days together on the St. Paul Police Force, Ryan would go on to preside over the strike force until his retirement last December. During the years that followed its inception, there were times when the strike force faced oblivion. In 2003, the state legislature slashed its budget from $1.5 million a year to $350,000. The strike force was able to stave off extinction, however, by relying on funds seized through its operations. Despite the budget cuts, members had enough money on hand to schedule expensive trips to far-flung destinations. The first time the strike force induced any kind of public ire was in April, when the Star Tribune ran a story about a $17,000 trip to Hawaii that 6 members of the strike force took under the auspices of attending an Asian gang conference. 3 months later came the Legislative Auditor's special report, the latest, and most likely last, chapter of the strike force's contentious history. Though investigators haven't found instances of explicit criminality, those close to the investigation describe a setup that all but invited corruption. There really wasn't a command structure that ensured that people were bringing back only material from a drug bust that had evidentiary value, says Nobles. Another vulnerability and risk is that you're funding this force, in part, on what you can seize, in terms of guns, drugs, cash, cars, etc. They can convert this into money that they can deposit into their own account. Adding to the temptation is the officers' natural disdain for the targets of their seizures, as Ryan himself candidly admitted during a tape-recorded interview on April 21st, a month before the audit was announced. Some mope, he's a dope dealer, he's never had a job and he's got this whole array of stuff that's really neat, that's better than the stuff the coppa's got in his house. And they have this thing that they don't deserve it, so we're going to take it. We're going to forfeit it, you know. That's just the mentality of the coppers. So you almost have to tell them, quit taking stuff. 3 weeks after their initial May 20th report, state auditors discovered that the strike force had sold 29 vehicles to Brooklyn Center-based car dealer Cars with Heart, without billing the dealership a single penny. Cars with Heart's owner, Nick Brackey, personally knew Ramsey County Deputy John McManus, the officer in charge of seized vehicles, through their sons, who played sports together, according to investigators. The deal involved no money, and was sealed with nothing more than a smile and a handshake. There was no documentation to support this arrangement, which is a big red flag, says David Policino, manager of the strike force audit. We expect to see some kind of paperwork, documentation, showing which vehicles went where, for how much, who authorized it. None of that existed. The FBI is now investigating the Metro Gang strike force to determine if there was any criminal wrongdoing regarding the paper shredding. Against this backdrop, Fletcher strolled casually through his downtown St. Paul offices, leading the way to a sequestered conference room.
After rooting through a mini fridge, Fletcher takes a seat at the end of long conference table and cracks open his generic brand. You mentioned the issues of promotions, he says, setting down his soda and reaching into a folder. Watching Fletcher sift through paperwork, you half expect the words "I've got an extensive file on you" to follow. Not today. We heard complaints back then, during my first term, he continues. But we resolved that in 2000 by having this agreement. He produces a contract his department hashed out with the Teamsters, who represent his employees. The rating process is an oral interview, which counts as 75% of the score, and seniority now takes 25%. The panel consists of 2 from management and 2 from union. So now I think that we have in place an objective process. He's perfectly calm, almost affable, in his explanations. It's not until the Metro Gang strike force comes up that a hint of frustration reveals itself in his face. He's clearly upset by the bad press his most beloved enterprise has received lately. Someone should probably report on the fact that for the 12 years it's been around, the strike force has arrested 700 gangsters and their associates every year, he says, an edge creeping into his voice. They've recovered hundreds and hundreds of guns off the street. I mean, they're good cops. They should have had more administrative help, and that's the bottom line. That's the one lesson here, there was sloppy bookkeeping. An hour into the interview, it's time for a bathroom break. Entering the immaculate restroom, Fletcher opts for the stall, leaving open the solitary urinal. Freed from interview formalities, small talk ensues. Toilets are flushed. You're not from the part of Iowa where the tornado tore through a Boy Scout camp, are you? You? Fletcher asks, over the sound of water from the faucet washing over his hands. The answer is no, fortunately not. But how did he know this reporter is from Iowa? Oh, he says nonchalantly as he yanks a paper towel from the dispenser, I think I read that somewhere.
The Suicide Files. Deputy Ruettiman tried to save his reputation. Instead, he lost himself. By Jessica Lussenhop. The Suicide Files. Deputy Ruettiman tried to save his reputation. Instead, he lost himself. By Jessica Lussenhop. The sedan sat at the end of Hammersma Drive for hours. This was no lover's tryst. As the sun began to set, the car remained dark and motionless. When the retiree spied the sedan, he figured the driver must be having car trouble. As he approached, he called to the man he thought he saw tinkering under the green Saturn. No reply. It wasn't until he got about 30 feet away in the dusky light that he realized what he was looking at, and it stopped him cold. He raced back to his house at the other end of the drive, ran inside, and dialed 911. Guy laying beside the car was all the dispatcher could get out of him. Pine County Sheriff's deputies quickly responded. The man in the road had been dead for hours. A black semi-automatic handgun was found near the body. After half an hour, the deputies realized that the dead man's description matched a missing person report that had been sent hours earlier. At about 3:30 p.m., a woman with fire-red hair had burst into the station. "My name is Susan Dieters," she told the officer at the front desk. "My boyfriend is missing." Dieters had looked everywhere, but there was no sign of him. She'd even checked a couple of hospitals to see if he'd been in an accident. He hadn't. Dieters gave the police her boyfriend's name, and they pulled up his license plate numbers. Then she told them something she hoped would make them take the situation more seriously. "He's a fellow officer," she said. "He's a Ramsey County Sheriff's deputy." On Hammersma Drive, the Pine County deputies searched the scene and found the man's wallet. Tucked inside was a Sheriff's Department ID card that identified the dead man as Ramsey County Sheriff's Deputy Daniel Ruettiman. Within hours, the news reached Jimmy Harrose, one of Ruettiman's closest confidants. As shocked and horrified as he was, something Ruettiman had said to him a week earlier suddenly took on new meaning. Ruettiman had visited Harrose at a time when he knew his friend would be alone. In the modest but cozy living room, Ruettiman handed Harrose a heavy brown accordion file. He wrote a name down on a scrap of paper, the name of a local journalist. "If anything happens to me," Ruettiman said, "give this to the reporter." After Ruettiman's death, Harrose took the file down off his desk. Inside was a thick stack of loose-leaf documents, a manila folder stuffed with letters, and a catalog-size clasp envelope labeled reports. Written in black permanent marker in the margin of the envelope was the reporter's name, "Mine." Before that October night, most everyone who knew Ruettiman would have said he would never kill himself. Even as she raced to the North Branch police station to report him missing, Dieters dismissed the fear that flashed through her mind. "Part of me said, no, he'll never do it, because of his kids," she says. He loved his kids so much. Ruettiman had helped his best friend Paul Hilger through an extreme bout of depression several years earlier. Yet Hilger never noticed his friend's despair. "Nothing indicated he was feeling that way," says Hilger. "I was shocked." A suicide seemed so out of character for Ruettiman, a career lawman with aspirations of rising in the ranks, that rumors circulated among his friends that something just didn't add up. "In all the years I've known him, he's never talked like that or acted like that," says Randy Scott, who served as a part-time deputy with Ruettiman. "I'm not saying somebody killed him, but I just can't believe he would have done something like that." More than 200 people jammed the North Heights Lutheran Church for Ruettiman's funeral. A sea of light brown Ramsey County Sheriff's deputy uniforms filled one section of pews. Another sizable section of the crowd wore the navy blue of the Roseville Police Department, where Ruettiman's father had worked. Ramsey County Sheriff Matt Bostrom spoke briefly from the dais in back of Ruettiman's flag-draped coffin. On one side of the coffin was a blown-up picture of Ruettiman smiling mischievously in his deputy's uniform, on the other a photo of him with his 6-year-old twins. "You were Dad's heroes. He'd talk about you often," Bostrom said to the twins as they sat bewildered in the audience. It was an honor to serve alongside Dan. After the service, a long procession of cars snaked behind the hearse up to the northern corner of Roselawn Cemetery, where Ruettiman would be buried at the foot of his grandfather's grave. 3 rows of police officers stood at attention at the gravesite. An honor guard folded the flag on the coffin and gave it to Sheriff Bostrom, who handed it to the twin 6-year-olds. Many of the guests remarked how nice it was that Ruettiman had so many supporters. But some of his closest friends and family knew better. They saw members of the sheriff's department at the funeral that Dan no longer trusted. They watched with contempt as those deputies gave their condolences. "He was hurt by so many people," recalls Dieters. "He felt a lot of people had betrayed him." On a blistering cold January day in 2010, 7 men from different branches of law enforcement met in secret in the basement of a bank building in East St. Paul. They were careful not to arrive in uniform. Seated at a round conference table, they looked across at one another with nervous amusement. The inaugural meeting of the Deputies, Active, Retired, Reserve Team Political Action Committee, DRRTPAC, was in session. "Well," said Ruettiman from one side of the table, "this is it." Ruettiman was the one who had brought them all together. Their ranks included Deputy Kevin Clemen, Vice President of Law Enforcement Labor Services, Local 322, Deputy Tony Breitbarth, Don Harose and his son Jimmy, both Ramsey County Reserve deputies, and Alfred Marazzo and Randy Scott, 2 former part-time deputies. They were all there to dethrone incumbent Sheriff Bob Fletcher. "We've got to get this guy out of office," Ruettiman told the group. Of the 3 active deputies in the room, Ruettiman was in a unique and an enviable position. He was a former supporter of Fletcher's, having donated to the campaign in 2002 and volunteered in 2006. After years under Fletcher's rule, Ruettiman had become disillusioned. He felt Fletcher's hiring decisions and promotions were based purely on fealty. Despite warnings from close friends and family, Ruettiman refused to sit idle. "It was all the political crap," Harose recalls. Dan was getting tired of the whole scenario. Fletcher's opponent was Matt Bostrom, the assistant chief of the St. Paul Police. He had first come to Ruettiman's notice when Dan took Bostrom's graduate-level course in Public Safety Administration at Hamline University. So when Bostrom officially entered the sheriff's race in December 2009, Ruettiman began talking to friends in the department about starting the Political Action Committee to get Bostrom elected. "He's a really good man," Ruettiman said to anyone who would listen. "He's fair." While filling out the initial paperwork, the group decided to use the names of 2 retirees as their chair and treasurer, in order to shield the active deputies as much as possible from backlash within the department. Those fears were not unfounded. In the summer of 2001, Lieutenant John Moore, a 20-year veteran of the department, told a coworker and Fletcher supporter named Dennis Flaherty that he'd decided to run for sheriff in the 2002 election. Fletcher called Moore 10 days later to tell him that he was no longer head of the 80-officer patrol division and would now answer to another inspector. "By the way," Fletcher said, "according to Moore, I spoke to Flaherty." Moore was moved around and eventually relegated to desk duty. Another officer, Sergeant Joyce Shaughnessy, was transferred after she pinned a Moore button on her purse and marched in a parade with him. She was moved to the undesirable Midnight Transportation Unit. In 2006, Moore and Shaughnessy filed a lawsuit against Sheriff Fletcher for what they said were politically motivated transfers. An appeals court agreed when it ruled the suit could proceed and that Fletcher retaliated against Moore and Shaughnessy for their First Amendment conduct by transferring them from supervisory positions into roles with significantly less responsibility. County commissioners ultimately voted to settle the lawsuit for $750,000. But Ruettiman felt strongly enough about the Bostrom campaign to risk his career. At first, he tried to take on less visible responsibilities. He manned the phone lines at campaign headquarters in North St. Paul. But after his truck was keyed, he had trouble shaking the feeling he was being watched. He said, "It's probably them cronies that Fletcher's got watching us," recalls Marazzo. "You get this gut feeling like you're being watched." That was how we felt. As the campaign progressed, Ruettiman got bolder. The Bostrom campaign's photographer was told specifically not to shoot the active deputies at rallies and events, but at a Democratic caucus, Ruettiman and Clemen grabbed Bostrom signs and stood front and center while Bostrom spoke. Photos of them were posted not long afterward on the campaign's Facebook page. "That let everybody know," Clemen says. Everyone made comments like, "Oh, you're dead." The patrol room became hostile territory, where Fletcher supporters held court and wondered aloud why anyone would support Bostrom. Deputies whom Ruettiman had once considered friends began to distance themselves. On November 2nd, the DRRT PAC members gathered at Joe Sensor's restaurant in Roseville, surrounded by huge projector screens blaring election results. Ruettiman, dressed nattily in a suit and tie, fidgeted nervously as the tallying of returns began on a dry erase board with 2 columns marked Bostrom and other guy. Ruettiman didn't have to wait long. Bostrom pulled ahead early in the evening. As the numbers trickled in and the lead grew, so did the buzz in the room. At 9:45 p.m., Bostrom took the call from Fletcher conceding defeat. Bagpipe music blared from the speakers at Joe Sensor's as volunteers cheered at the top of their lungs. Some of the attendees began to cry. Ding, dong, Fletcher's gone. Heroes sang. Ding, dong, the wicked Fletcher's gone. At some point, Ruettiman and Heroes clasped one another brusquely around the shoulders. Ruettiman had to shout to be heard above the din, "We got the devil out." Ruettiman was on a leisurely stroll for cigarettes along the picturesque coast of Manasota Beach, Florida, when the calls started. He was supposed to be relaxing with Dieters now that the election was over, but the cell phone torpedoed any sense of tranquility. Ruettiman learned from frantic friends on the other end of the line that his face had been all over the evening news. Did former Sheriff Bob Fletcher demote an officer because he was supporting his opponent? Asked Fox 9 reporter Tom Lydon in the teaser. Or is the new Sheriff Matt Bostrom giving the deputy a second chance he doesn't deserve? The report included fuzzy Polaroids of Ruettiman's ex-wife's bruised neck and close-ups of Ruettiman from the campaign trail with Bostrom. And finally, a quote from now former Sheriff Bob Fletcher: "A person with anger issues and a history of violence against women should never be allowed to carry a gun and badge." The news report was just the latest in a string of incidents that convinced Ruettiman that Fletcher was targeting him for revenge. In February 2010, Ruettiman was punished through an internal affairs investigation for failing to manually check a door at a holiday station that had been burglarized. The 2-day suspension took place 6 months after the actual incident. Then there was the domestic violence accusation. On an early June evening, Ruettiman was watching the twins for his ex-wife at the home they had once shared in New Brighton. When she arrived home, the former couple began arguing. As he turned to leave, Ruettiman yelled something that would ultimately ruin his career. "I'm going to fucking kill your father tonight," Ruettiman said, then made a throat-slitting motion before driving off, according to the police report. Hours later, Ruettiman heard from his supervisor at work. His ex-wife had called the New Brighton police to report the threats. Now they were contacting her father, and Ruettiman's sister, to find out what happened. A few days later, Ruettiman was served with a restraining order. His ex-wife claimed there had been an incident in 2006 when Ruettiman tried to strangle her. In the paperwork, she wrote that she'd never pressed charges because she was afraid for Ruettiman's job. "I regret this decision," she wrote. Later that month, Ruettiman, his attorney, and Dieters arrived at the Ramsey County Courthouse. While Dieters waited in the hallway, Ruettiman went into one room with his lawyer. His ex-wife was down the hallway in another room with her parents. For over 2 hours, Ruediman's lawyer ran messages between the two rooms, trying to negotiate a way to have the restraining order dismissed. Finally, Ruediman's ex-wife agreed to drop it under a few conditions. She would have the order dismissed only if he agreed to drop Ruediman from the hyphenated surname their children took after the divorce. He would also have to forfeit his parenting time. Ruediman reluctantly agreed, then called Dieters into the room and fell to pieces. He was a mess, she recalls. A month after that, 2 different jurisdictions declined to charge Ruediman over the incident. But while that may have been the end of the episode for the family, the wheels were just beginning to turn at the sheriff's department. The day after the incident, Ruediman received a letter from Chief Deputy Dave Matusalem, yanking him from patrol, confiscating his gun, and reassigning him to jail detail. A new internal affairs investigation was opened, this time for conduct unbecoming a peace officer.
Ruediman's request that the investigation be handled by another department to avoid a conflict of interest was ignored. In his first interview with the internal affairs investigator, Ruediman stumbled as he tried to recount what happened that night at his ex-wife's house. At one point, he told the investigator he'd yelled, "I wish your dad would drop dead." Later, he told the investigator he'd said, "I wish I could shoot your dad." The investigator continued to push, asking him why he kept changing his story. "I lied," Ruediman blurted. "I lied." The investigator also asked him about a 2006 incident when Ruediman and his ex-wife were still married but heading for divorce. He threw her cell phone in the lake behind their house and police were notified. But now the internal affairs investigator had something new to add: photos of his ex-wife's bruised neck. Strangulation had never been mentioned in the original police report, and Ruediman was never charged with anything. But now these photos were part of the investigation. "I have never seen these before," Ruediman said. Months rolled by without a decision. Ruediman worked listlessly in the jails, and campaigned hard for Bostrom. Convinced his internal affairs woes were the result of retribution by the Fletcher administration, the election suddenly took on a whole new meaning. "My only hope," he told his friends, "is that Fletcher is defeated." On December 23, 2010, 6 months after the initial incident and just days before Fletcher was set to leave office, Ruediman was called into a meeting to discuss the outcome of his internal affairs investigation. He was being demoted to correctional officer. The internal investigation uncovered a history of abuse, the demotion letter read, saying Ruediman ought to have been charged with felony strangulation and stalking. Even though you were not charged for these crimes, your actions are grounds for demotion. When Ruediman walked out of the meeting, Fletcher was outside. "I just want you to have a wonderful holiday weekend," Fletcher said, according to Ruediman's recollection of the incident to friends. Fletcher did not return numerous requests for comment. The law enforcement union challenged the demotion immediately, and a few days later, Fletcher was ushered out of office. The new regime decided that Ruediman's case would be one of 3 to be considered for re-investigation by an outside jurisdiction. The shot at redemption gave Ruediman hope until someone leaked the confidential details of his investigation to Fox 9. 4 weeks after he returned to Minnesota, Ruediman refused to go anywhere in public. He fretted to Dieters, "People will see me." On April 1, 2011, Ruediman arrived at the Ramsey County Law Enforcement Center with his union lawyer, ready to go on the offensive. His internal affairs case was being reviewed by the Minneapolis Police Department, and Ruediman had come armed with 2 years' worth of evidence. He hoped it would put everything back as it was before the election. "You are being questioned as part of an official Ramsey County Sheriff's Department administrative investigation," the Minneapolis investigator rattled off. "Do you understand that?" "Yes, I do," Ruediman answered. In January, after Sheriff Bostrom took office, officers speculated that he would make sweeping changes in the ranks. Those who had campaigned for him would be rescued from their abysmal reassignments and whisked into more favorable positions. But after several weeks, it became painfully clear that this wasn't going to happen. Even so, Rowettyman thought he could fix the situation himself now that it was in his hands. Rowettyman printed out all the incident reports he could find of Fletcher supporters involved in offenses similar or worse than his who were never subjected to internal affairs. One deputy had rolled his car over on the highway and responding officers had to extract his service weapon as the vehicle burned. At the hospital, the officer tested at twice the legal limit for alcohol. Another deputy had racked up several offenses, including a drunk driving arrest and a domestic assault in which the wife told St. Paul police her husband had strangled her. The similarity to Rowettyman's case was not lost on him. At one point, Rowettyman pushed the reports across the table to the Minneapolis investigator. The IA process in my estimation for the last several years has been corrupt and crooked, Rowettyman pronounced. There's some pretty interesting charges here on some of these folks. Rowettyman laid out the whole story, from his divorce, to his support of Bostrom, to the backlash from the other deputies, to the Fox 9 leak, crisscrossing from family dynamics to issues within the department. For 28 years, I have never been so humiliated in my life in terms of the actions that have been done, he told the investigator. I just want to be able to see my kids. I want to be able to return back to my patrol position and move on. Afterward, Rowettyman went back to jail duty to await what he hoped would be a better outcome. On August 1, 2011, Rowettyman got his answer. Notice of intent to suspend, the letter read. It was very much like the letter Fletcher's administration had written. While all mention of the Polaroids of his ex-wife were scrubbed, as was the implication that Rowettyman committed any felonies, the result was no less crushing. His punishment would be a 30-day suspension. He also learned he would not be allowed back on patrol duty. The demotion was halted, but he'd have to work in the courts. It'd be years before he could get back his old job. At the time, he told friends he was fine. I'm going to take my punishment, Rowettyman said. I'm going to earn my wing. In the months after the decision, Rowettyman's demeanor began to change. He started spending an exorbitant amount of time on the phone. He called his best friend in Arizona, the friends he'd made in DRRTPAC, his pastor, his sister, sometimes he called each of them multiple times in one day. If he was talking to an acquaintance, Rowettyman pretended he was satisfied with the reassignment to the Ramsey County Courthouse. He'd have nights and weekends free to see his kids, and he'd be back on patrol in no time. But closer friends knew Rowettyman had found out something new. Multiple local media outlets were requesting his internal affairs file. Once the investigation was finally closed, the outcome, along with the justification for punishment, would be available to the press. It's going to make me out to be a wife abuser and a liar, Rowettyman told his best friend Hilger. My reputation is destroyed. It's not as bad as you think, Hilger responded. Rowettyman would agree, but a few hours later he'd call back with the same worries. During his suspension, he started showing up at Jimmy Hirosa's trailer park for coffee 2 or 3 times a day. He would sit in Jimmy's parents' trailer, sometimes as early as 7 a.m., worrying that Fletcher supporters within the department were still plotting against him. It got so that Jimmy's mother stopped looking forward to his visits. Rowettyman's complaints were starting to sound more paranoid. In darker moments, he confided that he feared Fletcher might have him killed. If anything happens to me, call the FBI, Rowettyman told Jimmy. A week before Rowettyman was set to go back to work, he handed over the accordion file to Hiroz and told him to give it to the City Pages reporter whose name was on the envelope. On Saturday, October 2nd, Dieters was packing up for a casino trip to Hinckley with a friend. When her ride arrived, Rowettyman followed the pair out into the garage, where Dieters' friend complimented his prized Ford F-150, the truck he liked to pick his kids up with. "Do you want to buy it?" Rowettyman asked her. Come on, you love this vehicle. Dieter scoffed, brushing it off. Dieters kissed him goodbye and left. Ruettiman was supposed to go to his sister's for dinner, but then called to say it was too late, he was tired and wanted to talk to Hilger. When he talked to Ruettiman, Hilger was surprised by how calm he seemed for once. Nah, I'm fine, Ruettiman said. I'm okay. At 8:30 a.m. on Sunday, Dieters called Ruettiman from Hinckley. She'd won $1,600 the night before. Ruettiman seemed happy for her. They made plans for later that day. But before she returned home, he headed to the guest bedroom downstairs. In the closet, he pulled down his gun case and removed his service weapon, which had just been given back in preparation for his return to duty. He removed a single bullet from a box of ammo. Ruettiman drove his car north for about an hour, past the city where his sister lived, up past Hinckley where Dieters was. Ruettiman pulled onto County Road 61 and cruised through the farmland for several miles. Eventually, he happened upon Hammersmith Drive. He passed the only two homes on the dirt path, and rolled to a stop when the gravel became an empty hayfield. Ruettiman walked outside the car, raised the gun to his head, and fired.